Please welcome to the stage President and CEO of the Advertising Club of New York and International Andy Awards, Gina Grillo.
Good morning. I know a lot of you are getting ready to take your seats, but I want to just welcome you to the Advertising Club. I just want to welcome you to the Advertising Club's 17th annual Out-of-Home Conference. It's wonderful to see you all, and it is hard to believe that it's been a whole year since we were last in this room. Time is like flying. Today we'll be hearing from people making it all happen as Out-of-Home continues to take a vital position in the new media landscape. As you look around the room, you will see that gathering the community, agencies, brands, media companies, and tech platforms, this is really what the club is all about. For 128 years, the club has been dedicated to educating, empowering, and celebrating our members. The club is also about creating a platform for companies and individuals, and we are so fortunate to have the dream team planning this event year after year. Ad Club board member and CEO of Talon, Ryan Lal. Dave Yacullo, chairman of Outdoor Solutions. Brian Rappaport, founder and CEO of Quan Media Group. Laura Brandes, Vice President of Growth at Rapport. Andrew Weinstein, Group Director at Rapport. Incredible group. I want to acknowledge the Ad Club team, especially Program Coordinator Tara Clasians. This is her first, so this is like, she did a great job. Round of applause for her. And the linchpin to the planning committee and the success of this event. You all know her because of the 1,000 emails back and forth. VP of Programs and Membership, Alicia Greenberg. Please, rounds of applause and join me on stage, Alicia. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is what I look like in person. Thanks, Gina. Yeah, I'd like to talk to all of you about membership, but who here are members? Let's see hands of all the companies that are member companies here. So you can all talk to each other, pretty much all of you. Those of you who aren't, I will shame you later. But come see me, let's talk, let's have a conversation on how to get you involved. We have a community of over 6,000 members from all over. So we hope that you can join this impactful group. Of course, none of this today would be possible, here's the messaging, without our sponsors, our Tier 1 Gold sponsors, who've been friends for so many years, Clear Channel Outdoor, Lamar, Outfront, and our Tier 2 sponsor partners, Big Outdoor over there, Big. Capital, Chris, where are you? I hope you like your table. And New Tradition. And of course, our partner associations, the DPAA and the OAAA. We are thrilled to bring the community together again at this key moment of the year when we're spotlighting what's going to happen in the year ahead. It's a really important and critical time for all, so it's great that we can gather here and kind of look back, but more importantly, hear from the trendsetters on what's coming forward, right? And really focus on what Out-of-Home does for commerce, culture, and let's not forget important messaging as a vehicle to really communicate significant messages at important times. So you might remember Rusty Robertson, the founder of Stand Up to Cancer, spoke at this event a few years back about how the medium had been so successful in rallying for the cause. So today we just want to take a moment and help support their efforts. If you can play the video.
Stand Up to Cancer accelerates the pace of research by bringing scientists together to work on the most difficult problems in cancer.
when you know that a study that you designed will have an immediate impact on the patient sitting in front of you. I don't think there's a better feeling than that.
We truly want to impact every single patient we provide care for.
Your support is critical to our research. Without it, we would not be able to change and improve our patients' lives.
Stand Up to Cancer with us at standuptocancer.org.
Such an important message, and again, an important day for all. So shout out again to Clear Channel, Lamar, Outfront, Big, Capital, Intersection. I'm sorry if I missed that. What's a year without me missing somebody? New Tradition, DPAA, and OAAA. So at this point, if you are ready to start socializing all the great content we're going to have here, we are at AdClubNY, hashtag AdClubNY. Social is on the agendas, and the Wi-Fi's on there. And now it is a great pleasure to introduce Ad Club board member, Out of Home Committee Chair, CEO of Talent. I'm sorry I've been a thorn in your side for so long, but you're like a brother to me, Ryan Law.
That was not the song I asked to walk up to. Thank you, guys. Where's my talent team at? Enza, you said you were going to scream louder when I was announced. Thank you. No foam finger this time? Good morning, everybody. Really good to see everybody here today. It's one of my favorite days of the year, as you all know. And I'm happy to report we're way ahead of schedule. My kids didn't spill anything on my notes this year, so should go smoothly. Obviously, have to begin by thanking Gina, Alicia, Tara, and the Ad Club team. They continue to support the out-of-home community with this event. It's really an amazing day. None of this is possible without all their hard work and effort, so thank you guys. As a board member, I get to witness firsthand the great work they do all year long. I encourage you to take a closer look at their programming, particularly around mentorship and highlighting the work of our young leaders and the numerous DE&I initiatives. Please try to get involved and support, as there's meaningful value to their work beyond this out-of-home day. Also, I have to thank my fellow co-chairs, Andrew, Laura, Brian, and Dave. A lot of time and effort goes into making this day a success. Each of you brings something a little bit different, and you manage it so well, all while having day jobs. So none of this, again, is possible without you and the collaboration we have with the Ad Club. So thank you very much. I enjoy every second of doing this with you guys all year long. And then lastly, I also want to extend my thanks to Anna and Jeff and the OAAA team, who helped make this day even more special. As we look forward to announcing the Media Plan of the Year Awards, I can't think of a better way to close out the year by highlighting all the brilliant work that's hit the streets. I believe out-of-home is entering a pivotal point, one that will spark a sustained growth pattern for the next 2 to 3 years. It's a major reason why I came back to out-of-home. Last year, many of you were here and you heard me talk about the people. And yes, I do still believe the people in out-of-home have the most passion and grit, and there's no one better to tell our story. But we do have to take a step back and see the bigger picture and realize the media landscape has entered into another dramatic shift. If you look at the numbers, this year, out-of-home has had some of its best quarters in history with regards to volume and revenues, but yet we still slid backwards in terms of overall media share. How's that possible? Well, there are probably a number of key contributors, one most likely being the erosion of the linear broadcast up front. In the US alone, an estimated $60 billion is beginning to be redistributed, and no secret here, it's primarily landing in digital formats. Thank you. So there's no secret here, it's primarily landing in digital formats to which there's essentially infinite inventory. Remember the old line, no CMO ever got fired for buying TV? Well, just swap out TV with outcomes, and that's our current reality. And if you put yourself in a brand's shoes, that certainly doesn't make things any easier. In the past, the brand maybe had to deliver 1 or 2 briefs to their creative and media partners, and that would get a campaign launched. Now, a brand has to think about every connection point to their customers to where their message is being distributed. And it's not just a handful of partners and outlets. There could now be potentially 20, 30, or 50 or more briefs that they need to effectively communicate to their creative agency, media agency, every influencer, creator, curator, etc. So their challenge now is to organize this bottoms-up approach and ensure that all these entities shouting their message eventually ladders back at some point to their central brand ethos. And that is hard. Media strategy and the quality of briefs has become more important than ever. And our guidance here is critical, and this is where partnership and trust matters. And you also have to understand now that many brands have gone down the rabbit hole of trying to deliver such high-performing, low-funnel, outcome-driven campaign results that they're actually losing touch with their customer at the core brand level. And that is where the opportunity lies. At a home, in-person experiences, live sports and entertainment can all mix seamlessly to serve the perfect cocktail and build a powerful platform for brands to support and enhance their outcome-driven campaigns. At a Home has the talent and the tools to seize this opportunity. Premium inventory that delivers dramatic impact, a mature programmatic marketplace that offers more access points than ever. We just have to be bold enough to step outside our out-of-home bubble, see what's happening across the broader landscape, be thoughtful and strategic, and provide brands with the solutions they are desperately seeking as the landscape enters into this shift. Now, this won't all be solved today, but I think our lineup of speakers will certainly provide a number of key insights on how we begin to unlock these new opportunities that are well within our grasp. Planning for today begins immediately after last year's event, and it goes all year long. We pay very close attention to your feedback so that we can deliver the most thought-provoking agenda possible, and today is certainly no exception. We have a spectacular group of speakers today, ranging from top established brands who are no stranger to out-of-home, like MasterCard, Meta, and the NBA, as well as some newer brands like Rowan, Aura, who are using out-of-home effectively to stand out against their competition. As always, we'll hear from some of the brightest creative minds in the business, because we all know great creative gets noticed, and great creative in out-of-home gets noticed the most. Then we'll have a conversation with Michael Kasson, an industry icon who has long been a supporter of out-of-home. And I'm serious, you will not want to leave early because we have a very special surprise guest who will help us wrap up the day, so please stick around, you're going to love it. And now for our first speaker, we are more than thrilled to have someone who brings considerable principal investing experience in technology, media, and telecommunications. Darren Glatt has invested over $6 billion across 18 TMT investments during his career. Prior to joining Searchlight in 2013, he was a partner in the private equity group at Apollo, where he focused on both equity and credit investing in a range of industries that include TMT, consumer, leisure, and shipping. Darren serves on various portfolio company boards. Previously, he's held a position at Bear Stearns, Apex Partners, and the Cypress Group. He's received a bachelor's from George Washington University and an MBA from Harvard Business School. I've asked Darren to speak extremely slowly for this group, particularly some of the C-level students in the back. Please welcome me in joining Darren Glatt of Searchlight Capital to the stage.
Brian, thanks for having me. I'm also one of those C-level students, so don't be confused by the credentials. Thanks to you, thanks to the ad board for having me. I'm a little bit different in terms of my background and also my work experience, but hopefully I'll be able to share some insights today. And Talent Table, don't sleep on table 30, which is the Adams Outdoor table. There's a lot going on there, so there we go. So my name is Darren Glatt. I'm a partner at an investment firm called Searchlight Capital. What am I doing here? I'm here because I've spent most of my career, about 25 years, investing in the media space, and in particular in the outdoor advertising space. I'm a big believer and bull for the space. Over the last 25 years, I've invested in dozens of different media companies, but I have a particular affinity for out-of-home, and I've been able to have the good fortune of working with some of the people in this room and seeing the medium evolve over that long-term period of time. We hope, many of the people in this room would agree, we're good stewards of capital for these businesses and good partners to the entrepreneurs with whom we work, and really try to create fun along the way. A couple examples of businesses in which we've invested. Wow, Ocean Outdoor, not here today. They're a European-based digital out-of-home company, all large format digital out-of-home screens. In the UK, our capital went in to expand their network from just the major cities in the UK to kind of a more broad national footprint. Now they're a pan-European business. We invested about 10 years ago, and what's interesting about Ocean, not taking anything away from the US industry, the US industry is structurally a better industry for out of home than Europe because of a variety of things. Maybe I'll mention a little bit later. But notwithstanding the limitations in how out of home business can operate in Europe, this one was doing incredibly innovative things 10 years ago. So what do we care about in this room? We care about measurement and attribution. I truly believe that what's holding the out of home industry back is inability to truly measure audiences basically and deliver advertisers real efficacy. And so one way Ocean addressed this is through things like vehicle recognition technology, facial recognition technology. So in this example, BMW said, okay, you have this site Ocean, and this is in the Holland Park roundabout outside of a massive mall called Westfield Mall and a major artery in central London. And they said, okay, we don't want you to just show our ad to every single driver who stop at a traffic light in Holland Park. We want you to show our ad only to drivers of Audis and Mercedes when they stop at a traffic light. And so Ocean had technology in this site, massive site, digital site, that was able to recognize license plate numbers. And whenever someone was stopped at a traffic light, if it was a driver of an Audi or a Mercedes, a BMW ad would show up and would say, hey, hey, Audi driver, have you tried the new BMW 5 Series? We'll talk about CPMs a little bit later, but an advertisement like that clearly deserves more than a 250 CPM for the value that provides. And so that's one example of the type of things Ocean was doing. There's a few others, like facial recognition technology. Volvo hired them, and they would show an ad where people would be standing in front of a sign, and depending on the gender, so if it was a higher proportion of males standing in front of the sign, they would show a Volvo ad about performance. If it was a higher proportion of females in front of the sign, they would show an advertisement for safety. And so there are incredibly great things that were happening, and this is one of the reasons why the out-of-home industry, Ryan, you were mentioning market share. In the UK, the out-of-home industry represents close to 10%, 9 to 10% of the advertising bucket. In the US, it's 6%. So imagine, given the size and the breadth of the ad industry, if the out-of-home industry went from a 6% share to 9% share, everyone in this room would benefit. So some learnings there. We also invested in a series of smaller format digital out-of-home business. I guess people call it today digital place-based businesses. In this case, Patient Point was an operator of screens in doctors' offices and healthcare systems and hospitals. And again, I'll say it again because it's important. I think the thing that's held back the out-of-home industry is an inability, attribution and measurement essentially. And this business I loved because this one could pinpoint exactly the lift that the brands were experiencing as a result of the advertisement. So how did that work? Well, these were screens in doctors' offices. So Johnson & Johnson would have a new drug, let's say it's Ozempic, and they would say, okay, we want to put an advertisement for Ozempic in Dr. Scharfberg's office on Park Avenue. Last year they didn't have ads. This year they had screens with ads. All of a sudden, Dr. Scharfberg increased the number of scripts to Ozempic by 300%. Now, was it him advertising the drug? No, it was a patient in the waiting room seeing an advertisement for Ozempic and asking the doctor, I've heard about this great drug, can you prescribe it for me? He wants to get the patient out of the room as fast as possible so he can see the next few patients, and he writes the script, and all of that information is public information. So you're able to literally see, we talk about measurement, lift, right? Performance, attribution. I mean, a medium like that who's able to pinpoint exactly the impact of the advertisement is really powerful. And what does that translate into? A business like this, I'm sure there's clearly a lot of agencies, there's a lot of people salespeople at out-of-home companies here in this room. They were able to start the year with 80% of their revenue booked for the year. So right now they would be booking for 2025. They would start in January and have 80% of their year fully booked. By June, it would be 100%. And so that's not the case for large format out of home in any way because you're not able to deliver that type of visibility. But it's something kind of to take away and learn that if you can actually incorporate some level of measurability and attribution in a really meaningful way, I think it accrues to the benefit of the business. Wow, Adam. So that's our current investment. Many of you in the room probably know. What a business, right? Great, incredible management team. Mostly local, some national, really, really strong market shares, heavy ownership of real estate, 50+%, I have to get now financial wonk of me, 50% EBITDA margins, strong cash flow. This stuff really matters and the strength of the business translates into how the company operates and the performance that it operates in. You know, they tell me in my job not to fall in love with businesses, but it's really, I think I have a really strong level of entanglement with this business. It's really an amazing business. Speaking of entanglement, what's a business presentation? Who doesn't love a Venn diagram, right? So I'm unique in my sector because I invest in a combination of both media and infrastructure. Why is infrastructure relevant? Well, infrastructure is relevant because if this sector starts to be viewed through the lens of infrastructure, the value of these companies, all the companies in this room, will be enhanced incredibly, right? And so what do infrastructure investors look for? And that's the lens through which I evaluated Adams when we were considering it. So they cared about ownership of real estate, as an example. How much of your estate do you actually own versus just being, you know, essentially a concession? In Europe, one of the reasons I mentioned why Europe is not structurally as attractive as the US is they have their sites for 3 to 5 years, and every 3 to 5 years, some big owner of commercial real estate renegotiates the lease, and the margins on those properties go down and down and down. But if you own your real estate, you have total control over margin and obviously visibility on your, you know, on your estate, which is really, really strong. Customer contracts. Okay, you know, it's hard to think this industry will ever experience long-term customer contracts outside of the example I gave with Patient Point, which do have long-term contracts. But the more visibility, the more recurring nature of customer contracts, the more likely, you know, a business is able to benefit. So in Adam's case, you know, how likely is the McDonald's on the side of a road in Charlotte going to churn when the McDonald's is advertising their franchise 2 miles away? The answer is they will never churn, right? It could be COVID, it could be 9/11, it doesn't matter. They will always advertise on that site, and they don't want to advertise, it's okay. Because Dunkin' Donuts is going to want to advertise on that site. So the stickiness some of these businesses have are really, really, really impactful, and they translate into great stability in the business. So not quite like Patient Point, but Adams, as an example, is a business where they probably, you know, Josh, who runs revenue for everyone should know Josh Sharfberg, they probably do already. You know, he probably starts the year with 50 or 60% of the year already booked. And then the rest of it, and then you actually operate from a position of power because you have a finite level of inventory to sell, you know, in really, really attractive locations. So, you know, the ownership of real estate, the stability of contracts, the healthy level of cash flow because you own most of your estates, create an infrastructure-like characteristics for the industry, which ultimately translates into the multiple. So if you were to look at the big players in the industry and you look at the ones that have higher margins and higher cash flow and more local and more billboards, you would see a correlation between some of those things that I mentioned and their valuation. And obviously everyone here in this room cares about valuation because it creates health for the industry. Digitization. So everyone here knows the power and the economics of digital. You take a static billboard that's capable of showing one ad and you turn it into something that can show between 6 and 8 ads. One of the reasons that the industry in Europe is a little bit, you know, has higher market share, 9% or 10% versus 6% in the US is, frankly, the municipalities don't care as much as they do in the US. I guess in the US we care about things like driver safety and highway beautification and other things like that. And so there are more rules and restrictions and regulation around what you can do with your estate. But in the UK, there's a lot of great things you could do, which is kind of created an unfettered ability for operators to really digitize their estate. So it's fine. You know, most of the big operators, including Adams, probably generate 30% or so of their revenue from digital. Even if you could digitize your entire footprint, and of course, places like this, digital, the total business sense, but I don't know, if you're in Madison, Wisconsin, you know, and you're kind of in the outlying area of Madison, is the market deep enough? People in this room will know better than me. Is the market really deep enough to digitize, you know, create an infinite level of inventory? I'm not sure. Maybe over a long period of time, but right now, I think if you were overnight to digitize the entire footprint of each operator, I think it would cause mass chaos and disruption in the market. So I think it's kind of more of an incremental over time thing. Technology. There are PhDs in this room who have a better ability to articulate the efficacy of measurement and attribution and what that can mean for the medium. But I have taken away observations from businesses in which I've invested as an example, right? So Ocean, you know, where I was talking about the vehicle recognition technology, you know, we'll talk about CPM a little bit in a couple minutes, But if you're able to, deliver an ad to the constituent, to the audience you want to deliver it to at the time you want to deliver it to them, the CPM should be much higher than $2.50. Lift, attribution, right? So if in the case, as I mentioned, of Patient Point, if you can tell that your ad was directly responsible for increasing scripts of your medication, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, what have you, by 100, 200, 300%, you're able to really, get behind big advertising campaigns, and all of a sudden the purse strings of advertising budgets start to open and replace, Ryan, you were talking about TV. We're a big owner of a TV broadcaster called Univision. Great big business, great history, but the trends in that business and what that business can offer pales in comparison to what these businesses in this industry can offer. So clearly a lot to come. Obviously, digital and digitization of the industry will cause this to be a bigger and more meaningful, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later today, more meaningful part of growth. But even if there wasn't great digitization, again, my observation of the businesses that I've invested in, including Adams, is kind of doesn't matter. These businesses have great impact, they have great market shares, they have great visibility, they're broadcast mediums, and you even see a lot of digital brands. I'm not down on digital, but you could see Google, you could see Facebook, you can see Amazon advertising specifically on vinyl billboards, because they see the power of the medium, which I think is really telling. Some industry stats people have seen. This is the CPM slide. This always struck me as I'm not really understanding this. How is broadcast TV, a declining linear medium, charging the type of CPMs that are, in some cases 15, 20 times what out of home is, when both are mass broadcast advertising mediums and out of home can be much more targeted. So I think over time, this creates opportunity for the industry. And again, little changes in these statistics, whether it's market share or CPM, because the ad industry is so large, creates a massive impact for this industry. So I know a lot of people in this room bemoan the fact that organic growth in out of home is 3 to 4%. For companies like Adams or great companies like New Tradition, the inherent growth should be much larger, because they're managed extraordinarily well, and also because there's great organic growth opportunity, and they're smaller businesses, and they have M&A opportunities. So I think compilation of these things, these both organic metrics and inorganic metrics, create great growth opportunity, particularly for the speedboats in the industry, like an Adams, again, and a New Tradition that just are doing really innovative and interesting things. So that's kind of it. I mentioned some of the other stuff. Look, I'm thrilled to be a part of this industry. I'm a different animal, personally and professionally, than a lot of people in this room, but I can tell you I care a lot about this industry. I speak a lot, not just in forums like this, but in more business-oriented forums, infrastructure-oriented forums, finance-oriented forums about this industry and my love for this industry and the quality of the businesses in this industry. So, this is me really being a champion of the industry, and I hope we can all succeed and take this industry from 6% share to 9 or 10% share, and it's going to, in order to the benefit of everyone in this room. So thanks for having me. Thanks for listening to me.
Hello. Okay. Thanks, Darren. That's wonderful. Don't sell yourself short. There are plenty of animals in this room, just like yourself. So, I think it's music to a lot of people's ears here that someone who's not in this day-to-day has a very pragmatic approach to the business. And I think a lot of your key points in the way you evaluate businesses in this space are what we're all trying to, or how we model the business in terms of driving success for our individual, whatever we're doing, whether we're on the sell side or buy side. So just one kind of to start a kind of a macro question. We're obviously entering into a new political environment going into next year, and out-of-home has always historically had some real champion categories, namely automotive and entertainment. Historically, they've been real big supporters of the space. They've been down. Given that you're giving your purview across multiple different industries, do you see any kind of uptick in those industries, specifically in marketing and maybe more specifically in out-of-home?
Which one? In auto and specifically?
Auto and entertainment.
Auto and entertainment. I mean, I'm not at the granular level to know which advertisers are going to spend more versus less next year. I'd say obviously entertainment tied to the box office and movies and the pipeline and all that, fairly stable. Auto, again, surprisingly, when I did due diligence on Adams, I thought I was going to go in and see auto being like the biggest category, local auto dealers. And what I found was it was actually one of the smaller ones. I'm going to use this as an anecdote for national. I think one of the reasons is because of the lack of innovation in the industry. One, supply and demand, right? So like during COVID, when things were going gangbusters for cars, right? I felt like auto dealers just didn't need to advertise. Things were just kind of flying off. Obviously, we're out of that environment. But then I saw some of the markets, in Adams in particular, do some pretty innovative stuff and actually advertise their specific inventory, right? And so, as Adams was able to demonstrate, doing unique and different things, it was causing more dollars to flow into specific markets versus other markets. So again, I'm not, I think there's always going to be, industries that come out, right? There's political that comes in and out. There's gaming. There's, others that kind of flirt with the industry. So I think, again, if the industry gets it right in terms of innovation and creating unique, audience measurement tools, I think rising ship will lift all boats type of thing.
Sure. Kind of just part B to that, do you just see kind of a more frothy kind of M&A investment, private equity involvement in media landscape for next year or the next 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat hampered. Like, if I could, I would invest like billions of dollars in this industry, but I'm unable to. Why am I unable to? Because, you have three companies, great companies, Clear Channel, Lamar, and Outfront, who probably comprise 70% or so of the industry. So it leaves a fairly, other than Adams, which is the fourth largest, it leaves a pretty fragmented series of players behind that. But these players are transacting and merging in certain cases, and so yeah, there'll be activity there. But for an infrastructure player to really invest lots of dollars, you need like big opportunities. And so I don't know how that'll play out. Maybe there'll be other adjacencies that'll become more relevant, but on the basis of, I think, the players that exist today, unless the industry can kind of raise its profile through higher levels of spending and market share and break through this kind of 6% ceiling that I keep describing, that will create massive level of activity for the industry, again, because these companies will become much, much, much larger. But if it's kind of status quo today, 3% organic growth, I think there'll be players that will trade every year, a couple players that will trade. Everyone should go and talk to Mark Boydman and Ben Zinder from Solomon Partners, who are experts in the M&A industry, helped both buy and sell a lot of the assets that I described. They know a lot about the M&A industry. So there'll be activity. The question is there going to be like, an extreme level of activity? And if it's status quo, the way it exists today, I think it won't necessarily pan out that way.
Right, that makes sense. I think, we talked earlier, so we've seen private equity come into this space primarily on the sell side, and kind of like single entities. There's been talk lately about the potential of roll-up consolidation, primarily on the place-based digital side. Obviously, you guys, Patient Point was actually a culmination of a number of roll-ups, which makes it interesting. But do you see the potential for private equity getting involved, pulling together, 3 or 4 networks that makes a much more kind of attractive product?
Yeah,
as a whole.
And I'd sort of throw the question back to you. I mean, the answer is, in theory, that should happen. But I guess from a buying agency perspective, here's the first question I would ask: Why hasn't like an Outfront or a Lamar or a Clear Channel bought like in the taxi business, a movie theater, digital place-based business, gas station business? Because I think, the ads might be sold by different teams. The end markets might be different, the sales teams might be different, the decision makers at the advertiser might be different. And so how complementary are those? If it was the same as just selling billboards nationally, yeah, I think that would make sense. But I don't know if you put a taxi TV business together with a theater advertising business, with a gas station TV business. I mean, are you reaching 3 different constituencies? Is it sold by 3 different parts of an agency? There's a real synergy there. Right. I think if the answer, and I'd love to get your perspective on it, if the answer to that is, yeah, absolutely, it's the same team, they're selling each different form of medium, then maybe there's a case there. But if it's pretty fragmented and dislocated and coming from different pockets, I'm not sure how big of I'm not sure you're going to get like 1 + 1 = 3.
Right. I think the hope there is that it's about targeting the consumer journey, and certainly from an agency buying perspective, it's about access that inventory programmatically and buying against an audience rather than a specific location, and that might be the opportunity. So I think that's some of the things that I know it's been talked about and potentially hoped for, where we see less fragmentation, in this space, and that would bring, certainly when you look at addressable teams or digital teams at major holdcos or national advertisers that are looking to buy big swaths of audiences, not having to look at a long tail of publishers or media owners, that becomes a potential opportunity.
Although to some extent, the fragmentation of the space creates opportunity for agencies and specialists, no?
Yep,
The more
certainly,
consolidated
certainly
it
to
is,
some degree,
the
yeah.
more direct probably they can go, no?
Yeah, I think that I would say for the people in this room, any kind of incremental growth in that direction would be welcome, and we could sort that part out after.
Good.
But so last quick question. And again, we talked about this earlier a little bit. A lot of activity from private equity on the sell side, and you probably touched on this a little bit because there's probably greater multiples in the business that have ties to infrastructure or real estate lease and things like that.
Sure.
Do you see a path for a more active private equity involvement on the actual buy side or the specialist side?
On the special side, yes and no. Obviously, Talon owned by private equity. I think for the most part, you're not going to see as actively. Why is that? You may see it within private equity, but I'm going to make a distinction between private equity and infrastructure. I do both of those things, right? For infrastructure, you need ownership of assets, right? You need long-term leases, you need a network, you own screens, you own masts, you own easements. There's predictable cash flow, irrespective of the economy. The margins are super high, cash flow is super rich. I mean, these are things that they're definitionally what characterize the infrastructure industry. And I've invested in agencies. So I've invested in a few different agencies, and they've been great businesses and good outcomes for me. But I find they're people-driven businesses. And I find myself more of like a psychologist than an investor in some of those cases. And investors typically like ownership of assets, and again, to the extent you see assets that have higher degrees of ownership, you'll see the correlation between their valuation and the interest in those assets relative to ones that are more agency-based. Doesn't mean they're bad businesses. It just means like finance wonks like me, have a finite level of capital and mind share, and we want to focus on the ones that we think. We want to sleep at night, right? I want to turn $1 into $3 over 5 years. That's simply my objective. 1 into 3. I want to go to sleep at night. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to have fun. I don't want to have to wake up worrying about whether the head of this agency is happy or not. And so that's kind of deterred, I think, some real institutional capital into the sector.
No, makes a lot of sense, and really appreciate all your insight today. Gina, at least you think we're good on time, or we got time for one more now? All right, we got to move. Sorry. Darren, thanks so much, man.
Thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Sorry, I forgot to introduce the next panel. Our creative panel, it's going to be amazing. We have Mendy Robinson, VP of Creative and Digital from Lamar, who will help moderate. Mendy, you good?
I'm good.
Beautiful. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Mendy Robinson. I'm the VP of Creative at Lamar, and I will be your moderator today. I want to tell you about our panelists that we've curated for this creative talk. First, we have Rob Jackson, who is the founder, principal, and executive creative director at Extra Credit Projects. We have Jarrett Carruthers, who is the creative innovation lead at TikTok. And we have Jamie Robinson, who is the founder and CEO of Joan. And last but not least, James Rowe, who is the managing director at Adam & Eve, which is part of DDB. So thank you guys for being here. I'll just set the stage for just a minute. I know in this industry, we talk a lot about data and metrics, and that's all very important. But if you spend all of that time and energy placing that ad in the right place at the right time to reach that right person, and the creative falls flat, then all of that was for nothing. So this group is here to talk about how to make an impact. So let's dive in. All right, Jarek, I'm gonna start with you. What does innovation mean to you in the context of creativity?
So the obvious answer is doing the norm, taking the norm and flipping us on the head, right? But I like to reverse engineer everything. So you really need, as a creative, to spark a human emotion for action. Sorry. So then, there you go. So what I said, I'm repeating what I just said. You really need to, I'm reverse engineer it. You really need to have a human emotion, spark a human emotion to make impact, to make them do something. How do you make that happen? You have engaging idea, and then that idea goes to the technology. And I think the innovation is between the technology and the idea and the people, right? That's what innovation, for me, really works, right? So you can have a really great technology. New technology and new tools is not innovation to me. Just using those is not innovation. It's leveraging that, contextualizing that so your idea really impacts that target, that makes them feel a human emotion, that makes them have an action, right? So for me, the innovation is always where the technology and the people interact. So in the beginning and the end of the kind of the technology, right? And for stories, to your point, if it's not in the right area, in the right place, it won't have any impact. It just falls on ears. And how many times have you heard, oh, that's really great. I love that technology. That 3D AR was amazing. What was the product? I don't know, but I love that 3D AR thing I saw. So it's really taking that idea and putting contextual around it and innovating where that hits those two spaces. So it's a long way of saying
Yeah,
that.
I love that. It's all about emotion. Jamie, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's like, for me, it's like taking the same shit that we all have access to and combining it like in different ways. I mean, that, like, matter cannot be created or destroyed. We're basically working with the same ingredients. And it's like I was thinking this morning, it's like a little bit like Taco Bell will have like the same 5 ingredients, but they'll mix it up in a different way. And they're like, it's a chalupa. And you're like, oh my fucking God, that's cool. Cool, I love chalupas. And I think for us, so like for me, it can involve tech or it cannot. It's just taking what we have and pushing forward. And actually some of my favorite examples don't actually even involve tech at all of innovation. And I think for what we do as creatives in our industry, it is obviously innovation to, and especially in out-of-home, to get people's attention in an extremely crowded environment when they're doing other things that they don't care about, your ad, get their attention, and then deepen the story. And you guys may, I have one example I want to show, and you guys may think this is not innovation, but I happen to think it does, so we can fist fight afterwards if you don't. But we were doing, our London team was doing this campaign for a cool female body wash brand called Luna Daily. And Luna Daily is all about women's health and making women feel good, and they're distributed globally in Sephora and in Boots. And they were noticing that women, when between our teams, we noticed that when women know how to talk about their bodies, they actually suffer far less negative sexual and emotional and mental health consequences. So it's like really super important to get people to be able to use the words. And then team over there, I don't know if we're going to show it because, so our team came up with a really, I think, attention-getting and innovative solve for getting people to be able to talk about their bodies, because people don't want to say this word. This word is vulva. You probably didn't think you would see vulva when you came into this thing today. Like that, okay, but that's okay. But people don't want to say this word. And so they were like, let's get this word everywhere in London and then have exposure therapy hotline that you can call and learn how to be okay with seeing the word vulva all over London. So they put it over London, and they even, on the next slide, projected it on the Tate Modern, and there was audio saying vulva, 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 and trying to get people okay. Now, okay, that is like taking two forms of things that we have like we've had forever, out of home and a phone line, and exposure therapy. I mean, that's been around for as much as psychotherapy is, but it's combining it in a new way. So I just wanted to show that also because it's fun. So, but that is what innovation means to me.
Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, James, I know at Adam and Eve, you guys are all about emotional advertising. What do you measure the impact? How do you measure the impact of your creative projects?
Yeah, I think Adam and Eve, we always talk about putting feeling first. It's a little bit what you were talking about around emotion. But then in terms of how we actually measure that, I think there's two key things that we think about. One is fame and the other is fortune. And fame is real people talking about your brand. You know, I always put the pub or bar test. Like, is someone going to be talking about this thing that we're doing in a pub or a bar with their real mates or their real family? That's what we mean by fame, not necessarily being featured in Ad Age or Ad Week, although we love that too. It's about really getting on the minds of consumers in such a way that they are sharing your idea on your behalf. And I think that's when we talk about impact. I will certainly be talking to my colleagues about vulvas later on. In the context of this, of course. So the first is fame and real world fame. And then the second is fortune. You know, it's all very well having fame and people talking about your brands, but if it doesn't convert into an action or a change in their feeling about that brand, it's not going to impact fortune, i.e. effectiveness, return on investment. So we think about feeling, and then we think about fame, and then fortune.
I love that. Fame and fortune. Very insightful. How about you, Rob?
Yeah, so...
Closer.
Yeah, so do you mind cueing that slide? So what's great is the balance here today. We have a shop in Michigan, Grand Rapids and Detroit. We're not New York, London. We're a little bit more traditional work. Go Lions.
Go Lions.
This is the way I start that. When you talk about success, you know, we've used this analogy for a while, client, consumer, creative. The client hired us. They trust us. But we work for the consumer. And we don't ever forget that. You work for the client, the work can slide. And then there's our leg, the creative, which is equally important, we think. Any one of these legs shorten, it becomes less successful. Next. Well, you can't talk about success in outdoor without talking about simplicity. I mean, that is success. What level of simplicity did you achieve? Try selling that to a group of neurosurgeons. Next. And try following it up when they come back and say, hey, we need our group's picture on the board. No.
Is that true?
Yes.
Is that how you did it?
And so we say, we'll put the most important part of your portrait on the board. Because what's important is communicating this minimally evasive expertise. Next. So this is an oldie but a goodie for us. And when you talk about success and measuring, people still talk about this. This helped launch our agency years ago. You know, being from Michigan, we love our cars and trucks, right? So when you park your vehicle to go in a store, if you don't turn around and look at it, you probably don't have a very nice car. And so looking back is a way we measure success. You don't look back at the mundane projects that just came and went. You look back at the successes, certainly the failures, but why was it successful? The fame, are people still talking about it? Did it help define you? Next. Playing out something extra, right? Always bringing something extra to the table, and did we achieve that? We attribute success to that. Next. Just contextual. You know, I know we talk a lot about that, but I always think that's very successful in outdoor. Next. This is a top client of ours is Gerald R. Ford International Airport. I'm going to show a case study in a few minutes. They were voted #1 small airport in the country. And just big, bold, Midwestern outdoor that was very successful for them. Next. I think you're on the second PDF now, or the second one. That's okay. But attributing success and measuring it, right? Really, it comes down to how much is everyone smiling at the end of the day? The client, the consumer, the creative, because that's ultimately what you take home.
Thank you. You guys are the keys, that simplicity for sure. All right, so I know this audience is probably thinking we have a creative panel, we're talking about innovation, when are they gonna cover AI? So let's dive into that. Jamie, I'm gonna start with you. How do you see AI and automation shaping the future of our creative industry?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're all using AI. I mean, everyone. I'm sure all of us are using AI right now. I mean, like, I'm using it to do some of the things that right now that I am not good at, like performance reviews. You know, I'm like really good at now putting this in. I swear, use your Claude and your ChatGPT. It like makes it done in like 2 minutes. I mean, you have to put the feedback in, but it's great. But I also think what's automation, yes, okay, yes, we're gonna do it to make everything easier that we've done before. What's more interesting is like what the previous speaker was talking about. How do we do it to make the thing that happened in Minority Report, where it's like you walk in and it's like, hey Mandy, you're having a bad hair day. We should probably get you to the salon right now. And you're like, oh my God, how did it know that I was having a bad hair day? That kind of deeper interest, you're having a great hair day, but that kind of a deeper storytelling, that is what's exciting. How do we use AI to create something that we've never been able to do before? That is what I hope to see us really working on more as an industry, not just making the things go faster. Because sure, we can do that and we should do that. But what we need to do is put forward and go, what can we imagine that we could never have done before?
Awesome. Jarek, you're like a pioneer at TikTok, so tell us how you guys are using it there today.
I just want to jump on what Jamie just said. Like, it's not about really going faster, it's about going deeper. So I see, like, I love AI, so to me, it's like being a great creative director. You put a box, right, the restraints in the box, you talk about your target, you give it a strategic point of view, and you keep giving prompts to make it go forward, not go backwards, right, to get better and better and better. So it's almost, if you're a good leader and you're a good creative director, the prompts is like second nature to you. For me is. And automation, to your point, is not to go faster, is to go deeper, because we all have a short timeline now. So it's to take yourself and almost replicate yourself and to go deeper and deeper into that idea, into that creativity. So in the same amount of time, you have gone infinitely more deeper and more nuance that you could do just in a room, beating your head against the wall with another writer or director. So that's how I see it, yeah.
James, anything to add?
Yeah, I think we use AI across the creative process, and what I've noticed is it cannot replace original creative thought. AI is great at synthesizing information that has happened previously. It's amalgamating everything that's on the internet ever before right now. And that's really useful in summarizing things. We have a tool called Bad Ideas Bot, which is basically stick the brief in, it will give you 10 things that have probably been thought about before, and it allows us to get to original thought quicker that way, because we ignore all the stuff that's kind of the first thought stuff that sometimes can take you a week to kind of get to. So we go, okay, that's all the shit stuff we don't want to do, now let's go to the original stuff. So my sort of prediction is that I hope AI never replaces that sense of original creative thought. And it's about prioritization as well. I think for our people, and I always like to think about AI in how it affects our people and our creatives, it's about removing the stuff that they don't want to do so they can focus their time on the stuff they're really good at, which is that original creative thought. So, you know, I think we've spoken a little bit today about all the different media fragmentation, all the formats, the briefs, the deliverable spreadsheets that we have for clients now are like longer than my Christmas list now. Like it's all the way down here. And so what AI allows us to do is focus our creative time on not figuring out how that idea translates into a mobile banner, but instead thinking about how can I really innovate, how can I really push the creative thought forward in big mediums. So yeah, it's about prioritization and pushing for original creative thought rather than using AI as a crutch for creative thinking, which we don't believe it is.
Yeah, an appropriate use for sure. Okay, Rob, this question is for you. How do you ensure that your creative work is not only innovative, but is meaningful to the audience?
Yeah, so again, I go back to simplicity. Simplicity is the ultimate innovation to me, in, out of home. I heard something a few weeks ago I've been using, it says every move we make, everything we do in creative is in a contest for meaning, whether it's copy or visual or the media plan. And that's worked really well for us. We also do something called a media merge, where we have our creative and media teams meet up about a third way through the project to share ideas. Sometimes the best media idea comes from creative. Sometimes it's vice versa. Can you cue a couple slides, Michael? So a short case study I'll fly through. This is Gerald R. Ford International Airport, as I mentioned. Go ahead. And so we did a 60th anniversary campaign for them. Again, real traditional outdoor in Michigan, but big and bold and visual. We came up with this peace plan logo. So in the contest for meaning, right? They started in '63, and the idea was it's been nonstop peace of mind since '63. But going deeper, create more meaning, it's different touch points. There's mobile units. Go ahead. We created a big anniversary celebration event for them, and this campaign really just enveloped the whole experience. On premise, not just the boards on the road, but all the way through the organization, internally, externally, it just adds to the significance and meaning. Advance. This even in the lobby, so this was a kind of a simple little augmented experience. We pieced the photos together of the 1963 lobby, and you were able to just check it out and experience it, and so that went a little deeper. Lastly, we created the Great Billboard Hunt, right? Just trying to take things further. Extra. This is something called Goose Chase. It's a scavenger hunt app that you can get a subscription. Go ahead. And we advertise this in all kinds of ways. The Great Billboard Hunt, can you find all 30 nonstop destinations? We were promoting all their nonstops from Grand Rapids. And the community was really engaged by this. They loved it. Thousands of impressions, was on the news multiple times, really communicated the objective of the brief, and really extended the meaning and was really engaging for the client.
That's great work. Great work. Jarek, how do you make sure the work resonates on a deeper level?
I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. It's just that human emotion, that core emotion. People don't make action unless you hit, that feeling of happiness or sadness or angry. We all know angry, to go do something. So, this is not your question, but I want to kind of hit upon it, especially because of the out of home. But out of home was really thought about get out of your house, and right. But at TikTok, we always say our phone because you're on your phone a lot more than you're in your home, right? So, how do you get people to look up from their phone and take that content and put it onto the big, out of the house and out of their phones, right? So there's a connection, right, between the two, and so I'm always thinking about how I can take the phone, the portal, I call it the portal, and bring it to real life, right? And our phone, our home is something that we look at all the time, right? Because it's taking the portal and opening the door so people can see that in a contextual in their life. So I don't want to answer your question, but I really want to hit upon that about this whole thought of taking your new home, which is your phone, and bringing it out into the reality of the world, which I think Out of Home does so great. Yeah.
I love that, out of phone. James, anything to add there?
No, I think, as I said earlier, and as Jarek touched on, it's about emotion, it's about feeling, it's about understanding that feeling. We always think about that first, putting feeling at the heart of the brief. How do I want a consumer to feel about my brand? I think in the context of out of home, context is really important because, I think the context of where you're placing your outdoor brings new meaning to that feeling. If we have something out, whether it's a different time of day, whether it's a different city, it's going to hit different for that consumer. You're going to feel slightly different about it. So I always love when we get the media plan because that allows us to really think, okay, how do I take this message or how do I take this concept that we've come up with and really apply new meaning and new feeling to that based on how a consumer is seeing that and the environment they're seeing it in. So it's about feeling, but it's about placement and context and how that evokes different feeling throughout the consumer journey.
That is success. Okay, guys. Well, I think we're already out of time. That flew by. Our panelists will be around, floating around, so please, seek them out and continue the creative conversation. But for now, we are going to pass it over, and we're going to look at the power of out-of-home and health influence. So I'm going to hand the mic over to the club's committee member and founder and CEO of Quan, Brian Rappaport.
We can come on out. Will, Megan, come on up. No formal intro. I know we're behind on time. I'm going to get comfortable. All right. I will speak as fast as possible. I know Alicia has let me know that we're a little bit behind on time, but excited to be here today. As many others have said, really, really honored to have the opportunity to work alongside great people putting together this morning. I honestly think this is the best lineup of brands and speakers we've had in the years that this has been going on. So a lot of good content to come. And, you know, it is a great time to be in out-of-home right now. The channel has grown close to 5% already so far this year. We're coming off a Q3 that saw dollars spent on out-of-home, you know, basically increase 4.3% year over year. It's pretty amazing. And everyone should feel pretty amped heading into 2025. And speaking of 2025, new year, new you, health and wellness, and that conveniently leads to the topic of our panel today, the power of out-of-home in health and wellness. And first, to introduce the gentleman far right, or far left for me, Will Flaherty, SVP of Growth at Ro, the branding company that has set the precedent for what telehealth is while changing healthcare for the better. And we also have Megan Reynolds, Senior Director of Growth and Media for Aura, a brand that has redefined what it means to make health your priority. I'm sure all of you know about the Aura Ring. If you don't, after this panel, you will. So let's do some quick brand backgrounds. I don't need to talk anymore. Megan, can you share a little bit more about Aura, your day-to-day, your background, and kind of what you do with the brand?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks for the introduction. So Aura, we were founded in Finland over 10 years ago. I am wearing two. This is my personal one, and then this is the experimental app, so I know all the cool things that are happening, and I can market it. But we are a brand, like Brian said, where we want to make wellness a priority for you, and so our motto or our mission is your body talks, Aura translates. And so we focus on sleep because that's the foundation of health. We also show you stress, women's health, heart health, and more stuff coming up. And then my day-to-day, sometimes it's really fun and I get to work with creatives and design awesome TV and out-of-home. Other times I'm with finance and arguing for money and talking about measurement. But overall, Aura, we're really fun. We're a remote company, and I have the luxury of having a great boss who believes in branding and out-of-home and pushing the limits.
And Will, Ro has evolved so much over the past several years. It's been around for a while now. Can you share more about your role and kind of like the priorities and focus of the company today and what you're involved in?
Sure, yeah. So for context, Ro is a consumer telehealth platform. We connect consumers to physicians to help them get treatment for common healthcare conditions. And so we've really focused on very dedicated care in specific areas rather than being a service that you would go to for any condition or concern. And so over the years, we've built really deep specialty practices around weight management, sexual health, dermatology, and fertility. And so if you are seeking help for a condition in one of those areas, you connect with our providers. Our providers can give you guidance, can write a prescription if necessary, and then our pharmacy network will help fulfill that medication prescription for you, or if it's a condition that requires insurance coverage, we'll actually help work with your insurers to get you coverage and then get you that medication to your local pharmacy. So in terms of what my team and I do, we're thinking about how do we bring new members into our ecosystem and how do we keep them for life. And so a lot of that comes out into where we can go reach consumers in these markets that are very deep. There are tens of millions of people that are candidates for treatment, for finding value in our services in each of those areas. And so when we think about the channels and the places that we want to operate, we spend a lot of time thinking not just around how we can really excel in digital marketing, but how we can use out-of-home and other kind of upper funnel brand tools to drive awareness of our service, of our products, and really bring people into the business. So spend a lot of time with our teams across those different sections of our business to do just that.
Out-of-home, great segue into why we are here today. We're going to talk about out-of-home and how powerful and influential it is in the health space. So staying with you, Will, when does Ro consider it the right time to leverage out-of-home? What role has it played, in the media mix for the brand?
Yeah, so I mean, out of home has been something that's been incredibly impactful to help us kind of punch above the noise. We've worked with Brian really since the start of our company about 6 years ago. And really, we find it to be incredibly useful when we're bringing something new to market. So if we're launching a new product, a new vertical, if it's a seasonally important time of the year for us. So for our business, I'd imagine for Aura as well, January is a big time of the year, right? People are thinking about making changes in their lifestyle. They're thinking about their health. They're thinking about their wellness. And so what we found is out of home's this incredible tool to be very strategic to bring attention to a new offering, to really plus up, amp up the volume of efforts that we're doing elsewhere. And then I think in turn, what we've also found is it's doing an incredible job to help drive PR and kind of earned awareness of the business. So we're seeing our out-of-home ads be used oftentimes as the kind of stock image to talk about our business, our product categories, particularly around weight loss, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. So we see this kind of value of having out-of-home presence most of the time, but really particularly in these peak moments or these moments of bringing something new to market.
And Megan, for you, when does Aura decide, okay, now's the right time for us to lean into out of home and really leverage the channel? Because you walk around, at least in New York City, biasly, you see the brand out there, beautiful creative. When have you guys decided, hey, now is our time for out of home?
Yeah, very similarly to what Will was saying around launch time periods, big time periods for consumerism, so Black Friday, Cyber Monday, gifting. But additionally, what we found, and I came from Amazon, so everything when I first started out of home, I was like, where's the synthetic twin? How are we testing this? And so what we did was we were very CAC focused, unit economics for about a year and a half. And then when we finally started to show efficiency, I was like, okay, we're gonna go bigger into linear TV, out of home. And with out of home, what we found was it drives incredible awareness and consideration when we were able to segment it. So we use New York City, we see a lift DMA. We look at sales by DMA. And so we see lifts in Google search. And that has then fueled out of home being part of almost every big campaign that we do now, because it is a way to meet consumers where they are and let them know that, like, hey, there's this thing that you can put on your finger and it helps you with your wellness journey.
And both of you guys, I guess, and we don't have to name the competitors, but there are competitors in the same space that are out there, both in the health and wellness side. Megan, staying with you, like, what differentiates Aura from, like, the competitors in the health and wellness space without giving them any, press right now on this stage?
Well, for one, we operate across Android and iOS, so we're not just Android for our competitor. But we're the pioneers of the Ring form factor, and we take great stock in that. We have 25 PhDs on staff. We really care about the science and the rigor behind what we're doing. And so we put a lot of emphasis in that. And I think that does come through in our creative, where we want to show the beauty of the Ring, that we want this to seamlessly fit into your lifestyle. We don't want it to be another electronic that's like buzzing at you, telling you to do something, close your rings, stand up. We want it to be much more seamless. And I think out of home helps capture that because it is a beautiful product, and it's a little bit more on the luxury side.
And Will, competition, obviously in the weight loss sector, we've seen other brands kind of pop up, but Ro has, had consistent, for the most part, always on presence. What differentiates you guys, with your out of home, I guess, or in general from your competitors?
Yeah, I think the weight loss sector is a really good one to talk about in terms of why we really love out of home, because if you think about the competitive set and us and other players in the market, by and large, we're offering consumers access to the same medication, right? So there are branded medications that exist in the marketplace that allow consumers to experience, really meaningful weight loss. Ozempic, Wegovy, I'm sure many of you have heard of these medications. And so, by and large, our program, as well as others, help consumers access those medications. When we think about differentiation, we have to differentiate on other factors beyond just the core offering in many cases. And so we find out of home as a means to really vault over other people with respect to legitimacy. There's, I think, a real conference of quality and trust that comes through when you're advertising out of home, right? I think to some extent, and top of funnel more broadly, right? Consumers can connect and say, okay, if this brand is spending in this way, like they must be legitimate. They must have the means to be present and be vocal and be loud. the style and the design of the creative is elevated, that only continues to add and fuel that perception. So we find it as something that just helps legitimize us over other competitors. There are many competitors in the space that are, I think, come off as a little less legitimate, quite frankly. And so we find that this, amidst other channel executions, helps drive that legitimacy just by dint of the channel.
Awesome. So I've tweeted and I've written on LinkedIn about how bullish I am in the airport space. I think it's such a great untapped, or tapped, I guess at this point, area for out of home. I think this past Thanksgiving was one of the highest screening days for TSA. So funny enough, when we were connecting and chatting about today, both of you guys realized that airport has played an important role for both of your brands in your out of home efforts. So Megan, starting with you, how are you guys leveraging, I guess, the airport space? Why do you feel that there's such potential in that area for Aura?
Yeah, so we just started. We did our first campaign over Thanksgiving, and then we'll be doing another one over the Christmas, New Year's travel time period. And for us, we look at it as, again, what I just said was like we're meeting the consumer where they are, right? This is the most stressful time period. You probably got your kids. You've got like 18 bags. You're like, oh, I'm going to go to my family's for Thanksgiving, and we're late, and there's a snowstorm. And, to be able to show that, like, there is something that could possibly help you understand, like, sleep better. It's going to be okay. Like, it's very cute, the copy that we have in the app. Like, it's very encouraging. So there's one, like, the actual situation that the people are in. But then two, we don't have the biggest budgets. And so this allows us to expand our reach, right? We advertise in the 4 busiest airports in the United States. And what that does is that takes us outside of just New York and LA. That gets us someone who's transferring in between, flying in and out to see their family. And they might live in Chicago or in Omaha, Nebraska. So for us, it's a really great reach extender.
Yeah, I would add, I think that kind of filtering aspect is something that we really value. If you just think about the demographics of airports, who's traveling, it's inherently someone who's generally higher income than average. It's a kind of a nice target consumer for a lot of brands. And to your point, to reach your target person in any market outside of New York, LA, large markets, it gets prohibitively expensive to use out of home to reach them. But as they kind of go through this filtering transition point, transfer point at the airport, you actually have a great opportunity to reach those people with the same kind of best practices and mediums and creatives that you see success with in large markets. So we like it. We did some airport out of home this last quarter in New York and Chicago, and we're going to layer it into our plans for Q1.
So staying with out-of-home formats and how vast the space is, both brands have been on a lot of different formats in the out-of-home space. And Megan, again, being biased to New York, I walk around, saw The Ring on Link, saw it on beautiful digital spectaculars. What are your favorite formats, and how does creative messaging that the brand comes up with influence what formats you guys decide to hop onto?
Yeah, so we love the big, beautiful spectacular. So New York, Times Square, in LA, we got the Circa board, which was really beautiful and awesome for us. In London, we like the Outer Net. It's this really cool immersive experience that really showcases the rings. But we also love things like we did something on Sunset Boulevard in LA and like the 405. I personally love anything that's going to drive more frequency. So I love the Link ads, the subway ads. I think that really helps kind of get, it's the eye level. You can read a little bit more. You can see the intricacies of the ring. I'm trying to think of some other really good ones that we've done. My out-of-home team is probably sitting there and be like, "We told you to."
So you guys are both international and national, right?
We are yes, yeah. Well, so since we were born in Helsinki or Oulu in basically the North Pole, but we advertised in Helsinki, and so that was really fun as well. But mostly U.S. Yeah.
And Will, you guys have done it all: commuter rail, street level, obviously airport. What about you? What formats usually work best for Row?
So I think we really like formats that are permanent, that are more permanent and static in nature, which is I think a bit probably against the trend of where inventory is going. But we like it because it's omnipresent, and when you factor that into someone's daily routine, seeing a permanent placement through a daily routine day after day after day, I think just confers this kind of permanence and ownership that you don't always get with the digital board. Not to say that we don't purchase or buy digital boards in certain circumstances, but we really like that degree of permanence and ownership, the fact that you're owning a space for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, et cetera. That we think that's valuable, and then that kind of ties into the frequency thing of we want to be present in those permanent spaces during someone's regular routine, right? So how do we make sure that we can reach them and they can see our ad multiple times in a week? So transit is something that we've really deferred to in that respect. Then I think the other part of the pendulum is how do we find just really good placements that allow for us to do very visual, bold executions creatively. And so we've done a lot with kind of wallscapes and kind of larger formats, and then using those as opportunities to really push the envelope a bit more with our direction, our visual direction, our creative approach.
I think measurement continues to be brought up in out-of-home, and as it should be. I mean, for the longest time, I think, out-of-home was looked at from a 50,000 square foot view as simply an awareness top of funnel play, and yes, that's still the case, but it very much can be measured, and we can understand the effectiveness of the channel. So, Will, how do you guys consider, a campaign successful? How do you look at the effectiveness of out-of-home?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we accept is that we're not going to have perfect measurement. I think which a lot of folks entering the space get into this kind of paradox where it's difficult for them to even start or get budget or get buy-in because they can't answer the perfect question of what was the exact yield on this ad. I think we realize that we see benefits beyond direct conversions. We see it come through in PR. We see it come through in other means. We will do kind of market holdout tests when we can. One of our realities is we are really active across a broad range of channels, and so we're fortunately and unfortunately so far along in building out our brand that it's hard to drop out of home into a market and have that be a variable that's meaningful enough to see it kind of break out across the noise. So I think we accept that, and then we just think really about what type of return we're seeing. We do have links and codes, and if there's an offer or some type of hook there, we certainly measure that. We'll maybe put a multiplier on it. But I think we're just generally accepting that there are benefits to this. We directionally want to compare placements over placements. So if we have the same type of measurement across ads, if we're seeing, for example, we did a really successful mall out-of-home placement, and we had ads in 20 different malls, and we did have discrete codes against each of them. Some of them perform better than others, so that will inform what malls we would buy into in the future, and maybe we would kind of change our mix there. So I think that's just trying to get directional guidance where we can, and just make the smartest decision we can with the information we have.
And Megan, in terms of the funnel, how does Aura consider, I guess, out-of-home, an effective media format? What do you utilize, I guess, to judge effectiveness of a campaign?
So in a similar vein, right, it is hard. We do look at it as more top of funnel, and we have our monthly measurement, and that does get kind of tough to pinpoint. But we have the luxury of being probably smaller, and so we are able to actually see sales lifts. So we'll look at sales on a DMA level. If we do billboards, for example, near Best Buy, since we're in Best Buy, we will go and look and see did those stores increase. So I would say we still look at sales lift. Google search index, right? I'm always trying to just get more people to type our name in, and if they can spell it correctly, it's a massive win, right? Because the amount of money I have to spend to get people who spell it A-U-R-A to get to our site, Google's making a lot of money off us. And then ultimately, this is always I say it in jest, but it's the amount of text messages that my boss got on the ads, then we know that was a good placement, right? It's because it is kind of hitting the right demographic, and then it bolsts everyone of people are seeing this and they're noticing it. And to someone else who said earlier of that was a cool 3D anamorphic ad, but what was the brand? It is really nice when you can get the actual confirmation that someone said, I saw your Aura brand in Hudson Yards on the 405 in LA.
So speed question, wrapping up here. One exciting thing out-of-home or not that the brand has coming up in 25 or partnership, et cetera. Could be anything. I will start with you, Will.
I think we're just really excited for kind of the momentum we have going into 2025 across our sexual health and our weight loss businesses. It's just January is always this moment where we kind of can take a new leap up. And so nothing specific to share now, but just generally excited for what the new year brings for our business.
Megan?
We are launching in Germany, and so there'll be Munich and Berlin out of home coming very soon.
more international at home. It's fun. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining me up here. This was awesome. Gina, Alicia, Dave, Ryan, Tara, Andrew, Laura. Always good doing this alongside you. Guys, we have a coffee break. It's been cut down to 20 minutes. We have Meta coming up, which is going to be really exciting. So be cognizant of the time.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you so much. We hope you've been finding the morning productive and insightful. We've really taken a lot of thought, and we're very intentional about the speakers that we have on this stage for today. So just wanted to say, thank you for everyone really focusing and listening to us. We feel like it's really important, though, that everyone's bringing different perspectives if we think about the different creative shops and brands themselves that are here. And for us, I think everyone in the room, there's nothing more important and helpful for us as we continue to evolve the channel is really just taking the insights from the brands themselves. So I have the privilege to introduce a client spotlight that I'd like to welcome to the stage, and that is with Meta's Christine Lustig, as well as Christiana, why am I blanking on this? This is terrible. Christina Radigan from Outfront. Don't, Andrew, don't. I had two names to remember and I butchered them, but excuse me for that. So Christine Radigan from Outfront, SVP of Insights Research and Analytics, that will be moderating the panel. So first, we're going to head and watch a clip show, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Again, I'm Christina Radigan, and I will be having a one-on-one conversation with Christine Lustig. Christine and I, we showed up with a bit of a dissertation today, and then we were taking notes feverishly because we were super excited to hear a lot of the things we're going to talk about be kind of mentioned as some pain points earlier on. We heard reach, frequency, we heard attribution, we heard fragmentation, we heard weight loss. The only thing I'm going to say about weight loss is this puts 10 pounds on us, okay? So moving quite right along. I was super thrilled to have you join me today. You're a mentor, you're a leader, you're a social media and media evangelist. So again, it's awesome to have you come and join us today. Obviously, we want to talk a lot about data, metrics, how out-of-home plays a role in the larger media mix. But first, I'd like to touch on, I'm aware that you have a new role, so I'd love for you to share with the audience what that new role entails.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I always love to chat about out of home. I'm such a champion. Don't tell the other channels. But and we've come off of a new global media reorg where now was previously overseeing audio out of home and print investment, but now I'm overseeing all channels globally, media investment strategy. So really sitting with our media planning team, overseeing short, long-term go-to-market strategies for our media investment partners, making that operational framework, scaling it across what's working in the US, what works in our other international markets, and partnering with our agencies and our media partners on those very strategic relationships that are important in terms of, again, upfront or perms or JPP, whatever that is.
Wow, okay. With so much sitting under your purview, I think we'd all love to hear, in terms of out-of-home, what role does it play in the marketing mix?
Yeah, out-of-home has an amazing role in the marketing mix. At Meta, we use out-of-home and off-platform media, right? I sit in a unique position in a unique company where we're a huge media company ourselves, where we have our own platform, our own channels. So there's a whole team that manages our on-platform media. My team focuses on what we call off-platform. That's where I am one of the unique people that spend money off of our platform and don't spend anything on our own channels. So when we talk about out-of-home or video or off-platform digital, we really are focusing on brand sentiment, brand consideration is where we fall in the media mix and what our objectives are. And then, of course, we have our Reality Labs products like MetaQuest and Ray-Ban Stories, where that is sales. So where they fall in the media mix is really driving that brand and consideration or traffic to where you can purchase our products.
Right. And, when we spoke for quite a few hours, because we have a lot in common, certainly with our passion for data and analytics, you made it perfectly clear that you don't think about out-of-home as just a silo in and of itself. It's really about the impact that out-of-home can make on the broader media mix. So, when we think about that, what are the metrics that, matter in terms of like understanding the impact that out-of-home might have on a media plan?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely like shift in our KPI. So our sentiment question we have, our consideration metric we have, how did that channel shift that movement forward, right? We really look at that. And then how do those channels interact with each other, right? So we look at the campaign holistically, we break it down by channel, and how are we driving those, said sentiment or consideration metrics. So that can be different by campaign, objective, et cetera. But in general, yes, how do we shift? How do we lift that brand KPI?
Right, okay. So when we think about tactically metrics, are you concerned about the impact that it had in a marketing mix model? Is it attribution data? And I know we want to touch on quite a few of these things in deeper detail, but is it the reach data that actually is driving the needle? I know we heard frequency was a metric that was of concern for our last panel. So what are the metrics that you feel are driving the needle to actually get out-of-home or any channel on the plan?
Yeah, I think it's like looking at it two different parts of our planning phase, right? When we're building a media plan, there's the scenario planner phase where we're evaluating what that tactical plan ultimately is. And then there's that post-campaign, end-of-campaign report. So those are two big windows. They're important where we look at channel metrics or data or insights. So I think in the scenario planner, we use one of many methods to look there. How can out-of-home, and that's where we're really, like for all of our channels, where we drive into the sufficiency, reach frequency. How can our media mix drive and maximize our reach frequency to drive that, max awareness efficiently? So that's where we drill in channel by channel. Where can out-of-home deliver that, right? Reach frequency mix. At the end of campaign report, we definitely look at a post-campaign third-party measurement study, or we'll look at our internal MMMs to see how those channels shifted those KPIs. Like I said, the sentiment, the consideration lift.
Sure, and I definitely want to dive into that. But you mentioned tactically, and having worked with Meta, throughout Front, and of course seeing you on the streets, especially here in New York City. I'm seeing that you're leveraging the whole channel. It's not just digital, it's not just video, it's print, it's all of it. So can you shed some light onto sort of how you prioritize and determine the formats you go to market with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we love all the ad formats, and I think it really depends, again, going back to the channel campaign, who the target audience is, where we are in the market, and understanding how each market is unique. So there's different ad formats that excel in different markets. So we've ran many iconic perm placements. Those we've gone digital. We've gone obviously in the transit systems, street furniture. Most recently this year, we experimented with guerrilla wild postings with Instagram to kind of get in those cool places where the younger audience would hang out, where there isn't necessarily a traditional digital or static billboard. How can we get where our audiences are? And so yes, the format's really we're open to all. It's really how it fits in the media mix and for that target audience, where they are, where they're consuming, where they're hanging out.
Yeah, seriously a deep understanding that our formats surround the consumer journey, right? Whether you're riding the rails or you're taking a bus or you're walking on the street, riding the highways, pedestrian areas like Times Square and others. So
where the
it's
consumer
amazing.
is.
Yeah, it's
where
amazing.
they are every day, how can we target them throughout their daily life?
Yeah, that's great. So at Outfront, I lead the data strategy, which we call Powered by Audiences. And essentially, it's the contention of targeting audiences lead to better business outcomes. We believe that every growing channel, mostly largely all digital, are doing just that. They're targeting audiences and they're proving out outcomes. So that's really an aim, an objective of our company and our strategy in terms of how we use data. When you look at out of home, are you looking at it from a data-driven standpoint, or are you kind of like out of home is mass, it's reaching everyone? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I know we had like a fun pre-conversation about this, and I said at Meta we like to say data's oxygen, so we need data for everything. And so when I started at Meta like 5 years ago, where my role was leading out-of-home print audio and building go-to-market strategies, providing education to like our internal teams, I was the most offline, undata focused channels. And I was like, shoot, I have a data problem when I'm talking to my leadership. I'm sitting at Meta, who on platform, they have all the data resources where we can see how our channels perform, optimize, measure, all the lift, all these like amazing measurement studies. And they're like, what can we do for out of home? And so we had to look inward and look different. And so where we really wanted to approach was like, I can't solve the measurement of it, but we can absolutely build some in-house solutions to be more data targeted and have data informed decisioning for our out-of-home buys. So I realized when I came to the conversation with the receipts or with the facts, I got a lot of more attention, and then we were able to buy more out-of-home internally. So we did that by partnering with our clean room partner and really understood how we can understand where our audiences are, kind of like building heat maps and indexes, so building third-party and first-party data with our clean room, depending on like the campaign and the data, how strong the data was. We mirrored that on a heat map, and we evaluated market ranking first. So what markets should we go to? We can't buy 20 markets for every campaign. I can't buy 10. Probably have to buy 5 to 3, honestly. So what are those top ranking markets? So then we used, with our clean room, we're able to use third party, like we said, like a work, play, live. And we brought in, through our clean room, mobile data so we could understand, what the mobile traffic counts are. So with that, we had like a combined index score that we ranked markets. And then we worked very closely with our media agency, Spark. They're out here, where we then took, as they RFP'd the market, they gave me all their considered units in a template that we developed that had the lat long, and then we fed that into our clean room, and then we were able to stack rank all of our media placements that we were considering based on the same formula. So then we all were doing data-informed market optimization, making sure we were like in the right markets, and then with all things equal, right? The agency, we relied on them for the quality control, the art and science, we're just not buying anything. But once they give me their considered units, then we stack rate them, and that's how we started to inform some of our tactical media placements.
Yeah, that's incredible, because for such a big brand to be leaning in so heavily into out of home at the brand itself is fascinating. And I'm a long believer. We talked about real estate today, and out of home in many ways is real estate, a good bit of it, but data and audiences are just driving value. And you kind of said it. It was like you're taking in the inventory, your agency's doing an amazing job with art and science of picking and choosing locations that are going to be relevant in the markets you need, and then you're applying a data-driven approach agnostically across the spectrum.
Yeah, so it really helped me drive, like if I'm doing the data-informed decisioning on the front end, we can see that out-of-home will drive better results on the end, however that is, in our third-party measurement, MMMs, et cetera, but we knew going in it was data-informed.
Awesome. I love that, because that's a great segue into outcomes, right? I know we heard from Darren at Searchlight, like attribution's so important, and at Outfront, every year for the last 5 years, we've been doubling the amount of studies that we've been doing. I think that speaks to how it's becoming a bit of table stakes, and brands and advertisers and agencies are leaning in. We kind of have one in the market right now with Meta, and just would love your POV on attribution. Does it move the needle? Is it, how are you leveraging it, and what are you using with the outcome-based data to inform something else in the future?
Right. I think attribution is really important, powerful tool in general for a marketer. And I think, there's so much potential there, how you can really understand how all your channels are performing and where the attribution model is and understand that full funnel thinking. That's something we do a lot at Meta. Like the media team is actually within the channels team under the product growth team to really like bring our brand and product growth down to like the app PMM teams to really make sure how do we connect that full funnel and that attribution journey, right? If you saw an out-of-home ad, then you're on our app, then you did this. It's a story to connect the dots. So I think it's very powerful and very useful tool. How we use that right now varies, right? We're doing, a partner-specific study, so we'll look at that with our partner-specific, how that campaign performed and how we can like make some assumptions across, the channel with that, and it'll help drive. It's one of the many data points that will be in our, wrap-up campaign look back, and then how we drive our future, channel mix decisioning.
Sure. And so when we spoke for again over 2 hours, you were telling me that you will conduct, your team conducts marketing mix modeling, and I would love to learn about out-of-home's inclusion in that. There is sort of the sentiment that there is marketing mix modeling data, thanks to the OAAA, who's released a couple of really great studies commissioned from Omnicom, benchmarking unit, but there are many instances where out-of-home's excluded. So I would just love to learn, like, what is marketing mix modeling direct for you, and how is out-of-home and is out-of-home included?
Yes, well, out-of-home is included. We have all of our channels included. We have multiple internal MMM models, and each of the MMM models are kind of set up for each KPI. So we have like a sales one for our Quest products. We have another one in development for like leadership to make some like market decisions on where Meta should focus like market-wise. Beyond just media. And then we have the one that I pay most attention on, and I actually did a whole deep dive. It was like a side project I had the last year, so I could talk about MMMs for days, but we won't. But we have a sentiment conversion-based one, and MMM data is in there. We work with, there's a lot of sources that we pull the data from. Obviously, we work with our agencies to pull in our campaign data. We have data warehouses, and we're always looking on ways to the API feed that.
Sure.
So to answer your question,
Yeah, you and I mentioned, using and, predictive data from Geopath, and it's awesome that you are including that data, but you did mention that having more granular, what we call sometimes in the industry, reconciled as delivered, it's exposure data, which would ultimately help get a better read and lift if you were actually correlating that. So is that something that you're interested in the out-of-home industry pursuing?
I mean, we would take all the data at a granular level anytime. Like I have executives that are like, I want to see daily impressions, or I want to see it by the hour, right? So any type of data, but like what's realistic and how to incorporate that. It's not just it has to be incorporated into our clean room, our tech stack, our agency tech stack. It has to be integrated into the systems we're using. I just can't take a random feed and then just like add it in. So how can we align with the data warehouses, the clean rooms, or the agency tech stacks? And I'm being very vague, but there's a lot of ways in, but how do you integrate into those channels?
Sure. So I know we're pressing on time a bit, but I think I'm going to have a time. Again, I think it's so important that we talk about, we heard scale, we heard fragmentation. I was pressing on you, like, what can out-of-home do better? Out-of-home do better. And again, you were very holistic, but you had some really, really good feedback. And what I loved about your feedback is I think it's feasible for us in this room to deliver on that. So could you just share with us quickly what that was?
Yeah, and I think I heard a lot of themes already today, but it was like the fragmented nature of buying. So like on a brand side, I'm not at first I was saying like, oh, I don't know how out-of-home can increase scale because I don't think about it that way. But then when I flipped it and said like, how can we ease into the marketplace better? It's really like how you buy out-of-home is still very fragmented in the US. There's 1,000 formats, which I said I love them all, but they're hard to produce. Our creative team, I hear you, that was up here before, like there is a laundry list of creative formats, and I have a lot of conversations internally with our creative teams or our brand teams being like, we need 5. And I'm like, no, but I need like 20, but I get it. So it's like, how do we figure it? So it's the way we buy, the way we produce, the way we ship them, it's very fragmented, it's very manual. So if there's any way to streamline it. Other channels, literally every other media channel, you can buy nationally with like 1 or 2 spots. So like broadcast TV, so old school, right? You can buy a national TV spot with 1 spot, right? A 60 or a 30. I
Right.
can even buy terrestrial radio with just like 1 30 or 60-second spot. For out of home, you need a lot of ways in to buy, a lot of ways. There's no like holistic coverage map
Yeah,
nationally
marketplace.
that I can
You were
just buy
mentioning,
in.
like,
You have
yeah.
to go in market by market. That's why I spent so much time ranking the markets and figuring this out. But if I could buy it nationally, I would love to buy national out
So
of
almost
home. That would be
national
great.
transparency is to the scale, the breadth, the formats,
Yeah.
the coverage would be very helpful.
Yeah, how can we do that? You know, we've heard things, programmatic is the way to do that. How do we bring in a lot of the smaller partners, like I heard the gas station TV, the mall advertising. How can we make that more a solidified space and pair it with like the leaders in the industry that have like the most, inventory? But yeah, if I could like flip on a national switch, I'd be buying it all the time.
And we'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to work on that. I did, after we talked so much, it was so clear to me that the message I was receiving was like, we have to look at out-of-home beyond the silo. I know I heard that earlier as well. We have to think about our position in the omni-channel media. So what does that mean? Reach and frequency data in agency planning systems.
Yes,
right?
yes.
You mentioned that incremental reach being so critical.
Yeah,
so
sometimes they're just not in it. Like the out-of-home team has to give it separately, and I'm like, no, but I want like my holistic reach frequency number.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and that makes all the sense in the world. Marketing mix models are effective. You said that out of home.
they are.
Faring well, but again, let's get to more granular data because I think it's really important. Instead of correlating what was predicted to be delivered in a marketplace, actually having what the exposures were and correlating that to outcomes will really help just move the needle for out of home.
We can use that for scenario planning and be more refined in our approaches there.
Perfect. And your final suggestion was like a nationalized, standardized being very critical, taxonomy as close as we can get on formats, will really help, reduce the friction in the buy-sell. So I think these are all actionable and feasible things that we as an industry can come together to deliver for you and for other big brands spending in the space. So, so again, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
And now, it is my pleasure to invite Dave Yacullo up to the stage. I know him for 25 years, so I'd like to call him a legend and a mentor. But he is here, the out-of-home committee member, and also the chairman of Outdoor Solutions. So thank you, Dave.
Hello, everyone. Our next speaker is one of advertising's true power players and legends, the founder and former chairman of MediaLink, and now founder and chairman of 3C Ventures, my friend Michael Kasson. Michael, come on up.
Thank you, Dave.
So Michael, this is especially exciting for me, you as one of my mentors. It's not often that you get to do a Q&A on stage with a legend, but also...
When the legend shows up, I'll give him the microphone.
No, it's to do a Q&A on stage with you is really cool. One of my former bosses had a big impact on my career, so it's pretty cool that we're sitting up here together 30 plus years later. So thank you again and welcome.
I appreciate that, Dave. I just want to say, you used the M word, the mentor word, but I want to let the audience in on a little secret. Whatever it is I know about the out-of-home industry, and you left one of my important titles out, which is chairman of New Tradition.
Yes.
But what I know about the out-of-home business secretly I learned from you. So, you know, I mentored you, but you mentored me. And I do want to at least tell that story quickly. May I do that?
Go for it, yes.
And I don't tell quick stories, so I apologize.
No. Well, since it includes me, I'm fine with it.
But all kidding aside, when I came into the media business 30 plus years ago, I was on a mission, and my first day on the job, as you know, I was chief operating officer of what was then the largest media agency in the world, and I didn't know the difference between a GRP and a TRP. And as a result of that, I had to go on a kind of a expedition of my own, and you were one of the people that I sat with, so this is inside baseball, but one of the people I sat with was Dave Yacullo when I said, look, for me to be a good partner and for me to be a chief operating officer, I won't have any credibility unless I really understand your business. And you were one of the people who took the time to teach me the out-of-home business, so thank you for that.
I appreciate that. You know, we obviously go way back. I mean, I'll just to share a little story.
It's true. Because if I don't do that, I'll just start singing. So I'm better off telling the story.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, especially coming from you. I mean, I'll never forget, you know, that like first meeting that we ever had. I mean, like, you know, first of all, Michael was new to the media business, and you know, he was meeting with the heads of you know, the business units and whatnot, of which I was one of. And so I walk into his office. He's got like 2 bat phones behind him. He's got like people calling. His assistant Beverly like coming in. You know, someone from Disney's on the phone interrupting, and you know, we're like 15 minutes into it, and you know, you're switching phones and doing all this, and finally, he told Beverly, like, Beverly, I need to sit down with Dave and understand this business. Can you please just hold everything? So we started getting into it. And then all of a sudden, I hear this beeping noise. And I'm going, you know, what the heck is this now? All of a sudden, Casson pulls out a beeper. And I mean, like, in back in the 90s, there's only, like, 2 kinds of people that had, like, beepers.
I was not that kind of person. I was the other.
Well, one was drug dealers, and the other one was somebody that's very important, so thank God you were the latter.
Well,
so,
I only say this because age-wise, my oldest son, when he wanted a beeper, it was around that time, and my wife was saying, no way he's getting a beeper. He's in 8th grade, not a drug dealer. I said, no, you're wrong. The beeper allows us to know where he is. Oh, in that case, he can have a beeper.
There you go.
I think that was why my wife got me one, so she could know where I was.
I mean, I walked out of that meeting going, wow, my new boss has a beeper, man. Like, this is going to be wild. Anyhow,
I may not know a GRP from a TRP, but I like gadgets.
So, you know, let's start there. I mean, a lot of people in the room know you as this legendary power broker, pitch consultant, curator of Cannes and CES, 2 very powerful franchises that you built and helped create and really brought to the media community in general. But most people in this room really don't know how you got started in the media business, so I think that's a good place to start.
So interestingly enough, Dave, right before I met you in the early 90s, I was a tax lawyer, as you mentioned, and I practiced for 10 years in tax law. And when I left the tax practice, my first stop was not Western International Media. Interestingly enough, especially since it's back in the news, my first stop in running a company was in the home video business, and I worked for somebody who's become rather infamous in the world and very much topical now, named Jose Menendez. So I won't bore you with that story, but I did have some experience in you know, one of the topical stories of our time, working for him. But that transition from practicing law to being in business was really something that I always knew. For me, practicing law was a means to an end. It wasn't the end. I didn't know where the exit would be on that highway. It turned out to be home video first, and then it ended up being the media business. But I didn't plan it that way. And at the time, the founder of Western, as you well remember, and many people in this room probably do know the name Dennis Holt, sadly not as well known as he should be for the contribution he made to this industry and really launching the independent media business. But Dennis turned to me because I was in that transition mode, and I was 42 years old, and he said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'd probably go back to practicing law. You might remember I had a chain of restaurants back then, El Pollo Loco and Rally's Hamburgers. So I had a side hustle going on. I was flipping chicken. You know, it was kind of like in Breaking Bad. We were actually, I actually met the founder, the creator of Breaking Bad, and I said, you know, the difference between Pollos Hermanos in Breaking Bad and El Pollo Loco is we were not doing crystal meth. We were actually doing like marinade for the chicken in the back room. But so the opportunity to transition and help Dennis at that time really transition Western was my entry point into the media business. And it was, you know, arguably the best decision I ever made, was taking that opportunity. But as I said earlier, I was set up to fail maybe because literally I was COO on the first day. And that was a tough challenge for a company that never, as you know, because you worked there before I did, didn't really have anything other than a single leader. And it wasn't a company that had, you know, operational efficiency, but it had great success. And so my challenge was to learn the business and also create the right operational, you know, capability internally.
Yeah, and for a lot of people in the room, I mean, and you helped transform that business and obviously took Western to a different level, and the story to selling to Interpublic Group and all that. But, you know, back in the 90s, there wasn't any media-only agencies. I mean, Michael mentioned Dennis Holt, true pioneer. He had an agency that was specifically media-only, and everyone said, oh, it'll never make it. It has to be attached to creative, has to be attached to account service. So there was really just a whole sort of industry launched sort of behind that company, and you and I were big benefit of that.
Well, and Dave, you know, the thing that I love to talk about, and we did this together as well, was the launching of Tall Walls when we did that in the mid-90s. So for those of you who do drive up and down the Sunset Strip, today it's de rigueur to look at the boards and the spectaculars that exist. But as you and I know, they didn't exist until 1996, when we put up that first board at 9,000 Sunset.
I remember.
In 8560.
Tall Walls. Like all the big launch of spectaculars happened right here.
Yeah, no, and it was something that, and it was also an interesting time in the media business because, as you will recall, it's when I realized, and you know, I think if I got to be known for something, it's a unique view of the word conflict, because I don't think that word really exists. I think with transparency and full disclosure, there is no such thing as a conflict. But the conflict we found ourselves in, owning the medium at that point, was, I remember this well, we had Disney up on our 8560 board, and we had the other side, and we offered it to Disney, and they said no, so I offered it to Universal. And Universal said yes, and Disney called and said, you can't put Universal on your building. I said, well, no. See, on the one hand, we're your media agency. On the other hand, we're in the real estate business. Right. In the real estate business, I have to take everybody. Right. And I'm not going to buy their media, but I'm selling them media here. That's when we made the decision, as you recall, to sell it, because we realized we had a conflict that was.
Yeah, and ultimately Disney ended up on that wall, and they're still up on that wall
still
today.
On that wall.
Right?
And by
in
the way,
in your old office.
And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, because I can see it from my home, HBO is still on the 9000 building.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
so we did those deals in 1996.
We did, and we both have an affinity for the Sunset
Those
Strip.
are what you call perms, guys. Just
Yes.
so everybody's clear. Everybody understand that? That's
and by the way,
1996 to 2025.
And by the way, we need more of those. I mean, I know we have a lot of agency folks.
Wait, you sound like New Tradition. I need more of those. Wait,
right? Yeah, it's yeah, that was quite a journey. And I mean, look, we still have affinity towards Sunset. You involved with the Pendry and other projects, myself, the Ace Outdoor. We still like the Sunset Strip a lot, and it's still really iconic and amazing.
But look, at the end of the day, I'm still really happy to be schlepping billboards, guys. I still think there's a lot of fun and excitement in that business.
Well, good, because we need you. We need you, and we're glad you're here. And you're obviously in it in a big way now, with as being chairman of New Tradition. So. But we're going to switch gears and jump into some of the key topics. Some of them we've already touched on here today, but I know the audience really would like to hear sort of some of your insights on some of the things that are really going to shape the ecosystem of I don't want to say tomorrow, but they're already shaping them today, and one of them is the creator economy, the other is AI, but let's tackle the creator economy first.
So I think the creator economy is reached its early stages. If it's a baseball game, we're probably in the second inning in terms of the power and the impact that the creator economy is going to have. I've taken a position, the only other board that I am on other than philanthropic boards is a company called Spotter, and certainly understand the creator economy and the play against the backdrop of that with the relative to the entertainment industry, but also relative to the advertising industry in general. And one of the areas that I think is underplayed but is growing is that exact area, the creator economy. When you see what a Mr. Beast or a Dude Perfect, or you see some of the activity that's online, nobody can not understand the value and the power of that. And when you talked earlier about the tent poles, I'm very focused on that rolling into the plans for Cannes. I know it's December and we're thinking about June, but rolling into the plans for Cannes and new areas that I think are important that are underrepresented, and that is the creator economy. How do we capture it from our perspective, from the industry perspective, and where does it play? And so I think that's an area that everybody's focused on. The AI conversation is the drinking game in our industry right now. You can't be in a conversation where it doesn't come up, and as long as there's a martini at the other end of it, I'm happy to have that drinking game. There's some people in this room who understand being here at this conference, particularly, and talking about a martini has great resonance to me, but
yes.
The creator economy over here, AI over here. What I believe, and this is going to be high level because we don't have as much time as I'd like on AI, you're not going to see it instantly take people's jobs away. Instantly, you're going to see it enhance people's jobs. Ultimately, I think it's going to be, it's going to have impact on headcount. It has to. There's no question about it. Right now, it's our friend. In an employment situation, it's probably your enemy going forward. So I think that that's the way you have to look at it.
I think that's the scary part.
Well, it's a Trojan horse in some way. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing at some point. We're only going to make your job better. No, actually, we're going to eliminate your job.
That's the realities, right? I know everyone in this room, if you're a media owner, you as the chairman of New Tradition, and someone who's really connected, at in the CMO community as well as at the holding companies, how do we get this industry, beyond the 5-6%? I know Darren keeps mentioning 6. I mostly hear lower than that, but as somebody that's so connected at the CMO level and now really back in the thick of it with being chairman of New Tradition, how do we grow this thing? I mean,
I think it's as simple as this. It's narrative and storytelling. The difficult part is what's the narrative and what's the story. But the tool, the way I look at my business, and it's an interesting way to make the point, was always a three-legged stool. The three-legged stool, the first leg of it is the strategy, the second level of it, or the second leg of it is the implementation of that strategy, and the third leg, because I draw a distinction between implementation and execution. So strategy, implementation, execution. Here's what you need to do, here's where you should do it, and now let's go do it. So in this case, what we need to do as an industry is tell the story better. That's the only way we're getting above 5 or Darren 6, okay? So that's number one. Number two, where do we tell the story? That's the implementation. And how do we tell the story? I think there's ways to do it through tests of a different sort. I've talked about this at OAAA, and I will continue to say it here. There's an opportunity to go to the market and have the market test the results that actually come to you relative to out of home. And I think that there's a strategy there for the industry. So that's an idea. But the question is, where do we do it? Do we talk at a group like this amongst ourselves, or are we telling the story externally the right way? And then finally, the execution is actually going back to the example. I would find, and again, this isn't something that I'm saying for the first time here, and I'm not going to look at Anna because I know she's smiling, but I brought this up, and I think it's something we should look at as an industry. Find a couple of willing players that will give you the ability to prove what out of home can actually do.
Yeah, well, we all, everyone in this room needs to be telling that story. One of the themes, and there's going to be a panel after us about sports, but out of home seems to have some momentum right now, and sports and live entertainment. What do you see the opportunities around that?
Well, look, first of all, you have to look at what's happening with stadiums around the country and around the world. The entertainment districts and the opportunities that are being created around stadiums and sports centers, if you will, whether it's what happened in LA early with LA Live or what's happening in Atlanta with the Centennial Project. You look at those opportunities and you say out of home is firmly planted in those circumstances, and there's opportunity to be thinking about it differently. It's not just the billboard.
Yeah.
It's the entire strategy. I started early on this. Those of you in the room who remember probably receiving a lot of calls from me about 18 years ago for a project called Xanadu. At the Meadowlands. I probably
I got
called
one of those
almost
first
every one
calls.
of you here begging with a tin cup. Please sponsor my Ferris wheel for $100 million for 10 years. I found one sucker. I mean, one willing participant. I'm trying to sucker them into one right now, but so for that purpose, they'll remain nameless. But the truth is, that was an early indication of what you could do with that sort of a development, what out of home could mean in that context.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the Super Bowl, like this last February in Vegas, I mean, to see Doritos wrap the Luxor in such a massive, impactful way, it's such a huge media event, and then on the other side of the strip, have the 1942 Don Julio bottle as two bookends. I mean, it just goes to show you that, you know, out of home can show up in such a big way, really bigger than any other media, at the biggest cultural event, maybe in the world.
Think about this, and you know, I can speak to this firsthand because we represented it for the first couple of months of its existence, but the Sphere is as good an example as any. You know, I saw this, and I'm sure anybody who looked at it early saw this. This was always the out-of-home play. What happens inside with U2 or the Eagles or, you know, Dead, whatever's going to happen is going to be fun. But what made that an instant icon and basically the new representation of Las Vegas is an out-of-home strategy.
And I think, you know, the challenge for everybody in this room is, like, you can create sort of that shock and awe around these, you know, massive cultural events, but, like, and all the amplification that comes around that, like, how do we distill that down into multi-markets? Because, you know, all of us that have been planning and buying out of home for a while, each market has its own local nuances, its own opportunities to sort of create that very local shock and awe. So how can we tell that story about, hey, you like that Doritos, and by the way, a lot of people eat Doritos all over the country during Super Bowl, but how do we distill that energy, that creativity, and bring it down to a market-by-market basis and really drive some scale around it? I think that's something that as an industry we really need to get back, especially with some of the legacy categories like automotive and beverage and whatnot.
But Dave, I'll bring this back because we're you know, coming close to the end of our time. You know, one of the early lessons I learned with the spectaculars, and I'm going to really date this, you will remember when we got the first Billboard Live digital video on the Sunset Strip. And this is just a word to those of you who have teenage daughters. Do not do what I did to my daughter. For her 18th birthday, we took over Billboard Live. It was the first digital video billboard, and I posted a picture on Friday night on a digital video billboard of my daughter's Sweet 16 picture. She never forgave me, so advice to never do that. But that spectacular, play that card, it works. But I understand well today that the spectaculars are not what make up the majority of the revenue that's generated in this room. Correct. So we have to not always focus on that. We have to have the answer to the entire, the continuum of inventory, because that's where the challenge is. None of you are feeling too much pressure against the backdrop of the spectaculars. Those are always going to generate the revenue you need. It's the day-to-day that has to be.
Yeah, and we're up for the challenge. I mean, those that really understand the markets and key players, you can develop, you know, and be so creative and multi-layer across all of these markets. So that's a story that I feel like doesn't get told enough. I mean, there's a lot of big brands that have done out-of-home extremely well, and we've got to get those categories back, spending at scale, and we need your help to do it. So that's a perfect segue into, I mean, you obviously talked to a lot of CMOs. How does this industry get a better seat at the table with or access rather, to those decision makers and CMOs that you sort of rub elbows with all the time?
That's the purpose of 3C Ventures. See, I have to do that. But no, all kidding aside, I'm going to tell one quick radio story that I think applies. When I was challenged by Bob Pittman when he came out of retirement to run what was then Clear Channel, which included radio and out of home at that point, the challenge that Bob gave to me was I had to help him convince the market that radio, we didn't think of it as audio, we weren't that erudite at that point, and we didn't have podcasting, so it was radio. We had to convince the market that radio wasn't dead. Sound familiar? and Bob and I went on a mission. And that's why I have the idea of finding those willing participants. Bob and I went on a mission. Again, we're not at that point in the out-of-home industry, but it's worth considering. And we literally sat with people, and Bob said, I'm not going to even charge you. Just let's do a campaign. Just pay me on the results. But prove that I'm right, that radio isn't dead, radio works. The problem back then was said, the buyers who were on 6th Avenue, they're bridge and tunnel. They're not riding in their car. They're not listening to the radio, so they presume nobody is.
Right.
And no disrespect to bridge and tunnel, but if you're not riding in your car as much, you're not listening to the radio as much. That's a unique segment of the population. And I think that same situation is in front of us in the out-of-home industry. No one thinks it's dead, but we have to convince the market that it's not only not dead, but it's thriving.
Yeah, amen. I feel like you're always in the news, but I know 3C Ventures just brokered a big deal with Mediaocean. Congratulations on that. Worked with all the holding companies, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, look, you know, the operating systems that the industry uses, I've always been a big believer in efficiency, and there was an opportunity here to bring together, and it ultimately will possibly include other holding companies, you know, along the way, but Mediaocean clearly is an industry utility, and as a result of that, having some of your largest partners as your partners is not a dumb idea. Yeah. So it was an interesting deal to navigate.
Well, I think one of the questions I have, like I think a lot of people, I mean, after being in the business, 30 plus years, all the things that you've built and done, like how do you stay relevant, like through all of this, right? What do you do, Michael Casson, to be so connected and maintain all of that, like in sort of parallel universes with the holdcos, with the CMOs and the marketplace, frankly?
I told you at the beginning I was good at technology. I'm actually here, but I'm also in 3 other meetings right now. No, I'm kidding.
Of course you are. This goes back to the bat phone.
Yeah, I've got a doppelganger out there who's, playing it. No, look, I think you said the key word, Dave, relationships. I've always been a believer in the importance of a relationship, and if you maintain those relationships and you don't scorch the earth in the context of those relationships, I can look around this room and I can tell you there are 20 and 30-year relationships, including you in this room, but sitting here at an Ad Club New York event, I'm embarrassed to say, but this is probably the 15th or 20th, I don't know, time I've had the opportunity to address this group. So show up. That matters.
Yeah, thank you. So we're at our time limit, but what's the one thing you'd like to leave with the audience here today?
A good joke, but I can't do that. Well, I don't know if I can't do that anymore. I think last month I realized we can now do whatever we want, so no politics. But I'd say look at the bright side. All kidding aside, this is pretty generic, but when things are tough, you have to have the ability to say, yeah, but. And my best advice is the yeah, but. It's a moment in the industry where we're feeling some pressure. Yeah, but on the other hand, we've got a great story to tell, and let's tell it the right way. So the message here is, let's get the narrative right on behalf of this industry in general. Let's keep our chin up, and let's go knock them dead.
Absolutely, and we need your help in doing that. So thank you very, very much. Taking time out of your busy schedule, and happy holidays.
It's a great pleasure, Dave. Thank you, and thank all of you.
All right. Okay, we are going to be joining our next panel. So our next panel is setting a new standard, redefining how brands engage with audiences. I'll be handing it over to our partner of many years, Kenetta Bailey, Senior VP of Marketing, Clear Channel Outdoor. But first, this message from Clear Channel.
Hello. We are the last panel before we talk awards. So I'm really excited today because we are going to be talking to two powerhouse brands that are known worldwide. They use out-of-home to connect with their audiences and deliver outcomes. So I'm really, really excited about that. So first and foremost, I'm going to introduce them and then give you guys the opportunity to say anything else you want about yourselves. So first, I want to introduce everyone to Cheryl Guerin. I'm pronouncing that right, hopefully. Great. EVP of Global Brand Strategy and Innovation at MasterCard. You've been there 20 years, is that right?
20 plus.
20 plus, okay, we'll take it. What I'm really excited for you to tell everyone here is how the use of out-of-home has evolved over time. So we'll get into that, so I'm really excited to hear that. You are responsible for the Priceless campaign and have been for quite some time, as well brand B2B partnerships. So working with a lot of media owners and partners that way, driving connections with consumers. And we talked a lot about one-to-one connections, so interested about cultural moments and that, and really excited to hear what you've got to say. As well, we're joined by Larissa Johnson, VP Global Head of Marketing Channel Strategy at the NBA. And you also held channel strategy roles as well at Lyft, and you've been at Pandora and as well channel strategy at Twitch. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's just kind of an overview, but I want to give each of you an opportunity to say anything else you want to say about what you do or yourselves.
I think we should get right into it, but I'll just say this is an important topic, and I love what Michael was saying earlier. I think a lot of what we do is try to create some magic, some creativity that makes us stand out as brands and helps us drive our business. And I think there's lots of opportunity in out-of-home to do that, and we've found that, so I'm excited to talk about that further.
Yeah, and for the NBA, I've been there 4.5 years, but we always talk in seasons. So I've been there 5 seasons. I started the day the bubble season started, if anyone was along for that wild ride during the pandemic. But out-of-home has been such an important medium for us as we work to engage with our fans and meet them where they are. So excited to jump right in.
Awesome. So Cheryl, can you tell us a little bit about your media mix and how out-of-home fits into the media mix at MasterCard?
I mean, if I take a step back and I talk quick about our strategy, we're an experiential marketing brand. We talk about this. Consumers are getting hit with 5,000 plus messages a day. Very few stick and are attributed to your actual brand when all is said and done. The reality is we have a very low attention span. It's about 8 seconds on average, the amount of a goldfish, apparently. And so our ability to break through is critical. So we focus on passions and purpose and connecting people to their passions, which is what you do every day, and purpose. And so the ability to have a media mix, 70% of our media mix isn't really media at all. It's experiential marketing. And we use media to create further earned media off of what we do. And, just a couple of examples that I could even give you. Not far from here, 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, we actually redid the street sign there from Gay Street
and we lined the entire street sign with transgender, non-binary, etc. And the message was acceptance matters. And we used that, and our paid to earned on this. First of all, it wasn't really a paid out-of-home unit, so I'm just saying you could use out-of-home in very creative ways. We lined the streets with programmatic out-of-home leading up to that sign, but it was a 19-to-1 earned to paid, right? Because everybody took Instagram pictures and others and posted on their social around that. So the key for us is thinking about how we use it experientially. We even took a billboard in Times Square and built a restaurant on it. So you were able to book that restaurant, get the view of Times Square, a dinner with Marcus Samuelsson. So I think the ability to wrap experiences around billboards, around out-of-home experiences is something that, depending on what you're trying to do and the objective of what you're trying to do, out-of-home can play a really critical role.
That's awesome. I'm going to ask them to cue up the first slide. This is a partnership marketing slide, if I'm not mistaken. Cut off just a little bit, but I know you all do a lot with partners.
Yeah.
So can you just touch on that for a little bit, because you market yourselves and then your partners help you market as well?
Yeah, I mean, so many of our partners, that one's built, and it's a fintech, and they're trying to get awareness as well. So, they'll go to market in large-scale ways to make a splash. And this example is they're trying to get awareness and acquisition at the card launch. And so, not what people would assume traditionally is what's needed, but very progressive partners like Built and others, in the fintech space are both trying to get that awareness and acquisition and getting very visible in targeted locations, because they do rent payments and they're specific to New York City-based rent payments. There's specific objectives around that, as an example. Our small businesses are partners as well, and we launched a couple of years ago a women-focused businesses campaign, and in Times Square we lined up beautiful illustrations and showcased small businesses, and it illustrated the small business owners right in Times Square, and we did takeovers, so the entire Times Square was lined with these wonderful small business owners, and that gave us an earned opportunity too. It gave them an earned opportunity to promote their businesses as well.
Awesome. Okay, Larissa. When we first talked, you talked about out-of-home as being a pivotal reach medium for you, but also one-to-one connections and how you're working to make sure you have outcomes with consumers in that way. So can you talk a little bit about your marketing mix, where out-of-home fits in there, what percentage of the marketing mix it is, and how you use out-of-home with the NBA? And I think you can cue another slide.
Yeah, so this is some of our great creative for our playoffs last season. We use out-of-home for both our awareness and our tune-in layers. It's about probably 5% of our media mix on average. And on the awareness side, it's really a big reach driver for us, but it's really truly a way to extend our campaign. And so whenever we're approaching a tentpole, our campaigns first and foremost start with the big anthem spot, as our creatives love to call it, the film. And I think previously you would take that film, you'd cut it down to a 30, cherry pick some linear TV spots, and that's how you'd scale the reach quick. But in the changing landscape of today, out-of-home is one of the really important mediums we bring it through to drive that reach. And I think a good example right now is the 3D anamorphic creative that we've got running in New York. It's by Penn Station and by Port Authority. It takes animations and grabs from our big NBA Cup spot, featuring a lot of our player talent, and an Ocean 11 style escapade competing for the Cup trophy. And it really brings it to life in such an attention-grabbing way that I think is very unique to out-of-home. We also try to do very experiential type activations, like we'll pull out bus benches from shelters and put in arena seats so fans can have the experience while they're waiting for the bus. After the pandemic, when there were a bunch of vacant storefronts, we used that space to stream games, have the interactive storefront panels. really reaching fans, any place, anytime. We do a lot of what Cheryl was mentioning about also surrounding and extending our events. So last year we did for playoffs a big activation at GovBall. We had a build out. We brought the Larry O'Brien Trophy. We had a live DJ. We needed to make it a space where people wanted to step away from a music festival and actually spend some time there, which can be very challenging to do. And we surrounded that with a lot of really cool out of home. We were just at ComplexCon in Vegas, which is an important market for us right now because the Cup Finals are going to be in Vegas in a couple weeks. For those who weren't able to attend ComplexCon or did a lot of walking around Vegas to and from, that's where we actually launched our 3D Anamorphic originally before we brought it to New York. And then I think we have a slide of this as well, but when we think about the tune-in layer, we do 2 big dynamic executions. One will count down to game time so that we're reaching fans when they're out and about, reminding them that the game's about to be on. And then we'll do the live score API feed to make sure fans know how their favorite teams are doing in case they're not able to be home or at a bar watching their team.
That's awesome. So we do have those slides, but I think we have MasterCard slides coming up next. Don't just roll them yet.
All right, you can see them in a bit.
But I do have them. The other thing I want to talk about, there's not one day that goes by at Clear Channel that we don't talk about measurement. Not one day. Our own proprietary radar tools. We're talking to clients every day. We have a huge data team that actually works with clients. And so I know when we talked about measurement and the importance of it and the fact that out of home is measurable, and both of you measure it. So I'm going to go to you first, Larissa, and then come back to you, Cheryl.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a little bit of a speaker faux pas and pull up my phone, but I want to make sure to give all of our vendors who have helped us be best in class in this space their appropriate flowers. So measuring tune-in is extremely challenging, but we've been first to market on a few things. So we worked with LiveRamp and Vizio to do a custom out-of-home tune-in measurement study. We've worked with Samba TV to do the first tune-in measurement study for programmatic digital out-of-home. With our viewership attribution partner that does our multi-channel attribution, Data Plus Math, we worked with them to do device ID passback and get it included in the full channel view. Our optimization metric for our campaigns is attention score. So we worked with our partner Adelaide to get attention score with out of home so that we can tell how different locations are doing in terms of grabbing attention. We work with our agency Rapport with Rapport Live to do third-party verification of all our programmatic locations and optimize impressions that way. And then last but not least, also using M4 to do our brand lift studies. So we've truly got full funnel measurement across the board.
And has the attribution, has the measurement helped you get more dollars for media and for out of home?
I would say it continues to validate it because out of home is already such an important part of our media mix. So I think it just helps us avoid any conversations where it would ever be up on the chopping block. That doesn't come up, and that's one of the first places that I've had that be a non-conversation.
Love it. Cheryl?
So we have a measurement tool that we actually sell to partners as well. It's called Test and Learn. We acquired a company, APT, several years ago, and they actually do hold out test and learn measurement. So, for instance, when we launched, and Christine Lustig worked on this when she was at MasterCard, when we launched our transit campaign to launch contactless payments in New York City Transit, we were able to have Test and Learn hold out and actually connect the dots on how much more volume we were getting in and around where the placements were in Grand Central and other stations versus where we didn't measure. And you could see the lifts in and around, and you could see contactless being used, and then the trigger that contactless had to create further usage in those areas. So it was a very direct hit. Again, it goes back to your objectives, and so if you could back into objectives, whether that's brand, when we do B2B marketing and we're trying to hit business people, we took over at Money 2020 trade show, important to get people interested in going to your booth and seeing what's going on with your brand, we took over the Rotunda in Las Vegas, and we said, we wanted to let everybody know we do more than cards. We have an entire cybersecurity, data, loyalty business. And so the key message was, Vegas, our game goes beyond cards. And we had a ticker of all the different things that MasterCard does. And then we have a B2B perception study to see, did that change brand perception? So each campaign should have specific objectives and measurements. It's not easy, but I feel like there's different ways to do this, and certainly test and learn, which is something we're working on with some of the industry players in the room to potentially adopt and leverage to help.
Awesome. I think we do have 2 more MasterCard slides, if you could show them. They're so, yes, this is one in airports with one of your partners, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And then there's another one.
Yeah, that's a partner ad, Gemini. So again, we're getting the benefit of our partners marketing out there too, but this is an example. That's the Winklevoss twins crypto card, Gemini. And so as I was saying, more progressive, they're trying to get awareness and drive acquisition. And so that's probably was done around when a crypto conference was happening. So again, you think about what's happening and what's going on and what's relevant, and that's another example there.
That's awesome. You can flip it to the next slide, which is an NBA slide, and you touched on this ever so slightly. And you also talked to us, Larissa, or when we had our prep call, you talked about how you like to act like an entertainment brand, almost like a movie, right? Or a streaming show that's coming out. So if you can talk about that a little bit more as well, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think we realized we were operating like an entertainment company and specifically some movie studios, and when we figured out who we were constantly competing with for inventory. But it's the same strategy. About 4 weeks out from a major tent pole, we have to scale reach and we have to scale it fast. So we'll do national coverage with programmatic digital out of home, and then really focus on New York and LA as our key markets to do these really engaging, unique ideas. We'll have at least one per campaign, hopefully more. And it really helps us just reach the fans, ramp up the excitement, lead up to that moment of game time. And you can see as we get in the tune-in window, and most folks make the decision to tune in within 24 to 48 hours, we have the countdown going and making it, that feeling of immediacy and excitement to really get the fans to tune in.
Awesome. So 2 more questions for each of you. One of them, we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you about what you're doing with AI. So I'm going to go to you first, Larissa. Talk to us a little bit about how you've been exploring it with your teams at the NBA.
I know. Well, I hope Michael was right that I get a martini for talking about AI. We're doing a lot of interesting work. We're uploading our target audiences into learning language models, and we're using that to mine for audience insights that we wouldn't get from your typical qual study or focus group. And this has helped us identify a lot of interesting behaviors and patterns. And I think one of the other things we can figure out are location behaviors and, what they're doing on the streets of New York, for example. And then we're also leveraging those insights to do dynamic creative and writing the headlines and tailoring it on digital to really reach those segments with attention-grabbing headlines. And I think that could be really interesting in out-of-home. I know I've worked on projects before at different companies where, we have a whole creative team writing headlines for every neighborhood in New York, every neighborhood in Chicago, San Francisco, endless hours spent on coming up with pithy ways to reach those people in those neighborhoods. And if you could automate that with AI, I think that would just save a lot of time for a lot of people.
Lots of experimentation.
We're doing a bunch of things. Our sonic branding, we have an AI sonic brand generator because we do it contextually, in all different genres and types of music depending on the environment that you're in. And we start with an actual 100 tracks that we've created, and we just generate edits of those through it, and it saves us time and money and go to market. And we also do major social listening we call it our digital engine. We look at trends and passions and what people care about. And so you see something trending around golf, you know, and it triggers a message. It recommends the campaigns, and then we push them automatically. Like within 15 minutes, we're out with the campaign on whether it be Meta or other, you know, social. So this is something, you know, maybe with ability to figure out ways to push out messages like that into out of home, those are opportunities for us to be more real time as well.
Love it. So we have a room full of out-of-home folks, right? So last question for each of you. What more do you want to see from out-of-home? What else can out-of-home do for you? Whomever wants to take it first.
Sure. I mean, I think I've thought this for a long time, and I'd actually say the space continues to keep up with my expectations, but continue to go further, is just anything I do on digital, I should be able to do on digital out of home. And I really feel like more than ever, and I've said this statement so many times, that gap has closed so much that I feel like off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that I can't do on out of home that I can do on digital, which is a crazy thing to say.
It's a good thing to say.
A good thing, good and crazy.
I would say really press the experiential. I was thinking about this question, and you know, we take it out of home very generally. We have restaurants at the Peak. You know, it's Peak with Priceless. You know, is a restaurant that is a MasterCard. You have special experiences there with MasterCard at Hudson Yards. We did a drone show when we had our Stand Up to Cancer cause marketing campaign that we've been running for, you know, over 15 years now. We launched a drone show near Hudson Yards, you know, over the Hudson there, and it put from social the names of the people that people were standing up for, their placard moment, I stand up for whoever it might be, mom, whoever, in the sky. And we did a drone show in the sky. How amazing would it be to have had, you know, billboards lining and then the drone show over that? So I just implore both the agencies as well as all the out-of-home teams to be working together to come up with really creative breakthrough solutions, because that drone show, instead of buying media, we did the drone show. There's opportunities for that to have been bigger. And so let's work together on how to keep this super creative, because it's absolutely more stand out than any other medium from my perspective.
I don't think anyone in this room would disagree with that. So we're unskippable. We're always on. And
Brand safe.
We're brand safe. Yes, didn't get a chance to finish it, but yes. But we're really excited to work with brands like the two of you ladies work with and others. So with that, thank you all for listening, and I think it's award time.
All right, good morning, everyone. I hope you've all been enjoying the day so far, and special thanks to Gina and Alicia for putting this event on every year. It's great, as always. And of course, to Ryan, Dave, Brian, Laura, you guys are the best, and I feel really fortunate to do this with you each year now. I think we can all agree that one of the best parts of our industry is our people and the relationships we're able to build over time. You know, everyone in this room comes from different backgrounds and different companies, yet when we come together, we're able to create truly extraordinary work. And we've heard a lot this morning from industry leaders on what it takes to create an impactful and engaging brand story, stories that should be celebrated and recognized, which leads us into one of the more exciting parts of the day, the OAAA Media Awards. So please join me in welcoming Anna Bagger, President and CEO of the OAAA, and Jeff Jan, EVP of Strategy and Growth of the OAAA. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. I am super excited to be back here. Definitely one of my favorite events of the year, and I think this year was no excuse. Incredibly inspiring, such great content, great brands, great creative examples, and just, you know, something that really makes you feel very good about being in this industry. So huge thank you to Gina, Alicia, and the Club team, and of course the outstanding programming committee for putting this together. It's an honor for us to be a part of it. 17th year we're doing this in partnership with the Ad Club, and 24th year that we're actually doing the Media Plan Awards. So this is a very nice tradition. And we started another tradition last year, or it's becoming a tradition now because we're doing it again, and that was that we presented some research at this event. So that's my role here today. I'm going to do a quick preview of some very exciting research that we just came out with today. And then after that, of course, Jeff will do what you're all waiting for, namely presenting the Media Plan Award. And then Alicia told me to just remind everyone, don't leave when it's over because there's more coming and it's going to be great. So stick around a little longer after the awards. All right, so OAAA, I hope you all know what we do. Our mission is very clear. It's to protect, promote, and advance the out-of-home industry. And we work to elevate awareness of our incredible impact and just help the industry being a little easier to understand, buy, and sell, and also hopefully grow. And again, I think you all know that, but I wanted to reinforce it. And before we dive into the research, I want to tell you one more thing about another favorite event of mine, maybe a little bit more favorite than this one, even though it's very close. Our own conference that we just launched yesterday. It's going to be in Boston next year between May 5th and May 7th, and it's the largest gathering in the U.S. of the out-of-home industry and many more, and probably also in the world. So I hope to see you all there again and others as well. We'll have a great lineup on stage. Just to name two, we have many more and more to come, but we have, of course, Todd Kaplan, who's now with Kraft Heinz and who serves on our brand council, and also Gina Walden, who's the CMO of Rite Aid. So show up, get there. It's going to be fun, I promise you. All right, so before we go into the research I talked about, I want to talk a little bit about where we are today, and we've heard this, I think, throughout the day. You know, our industry is growing. We had a great Q3. We grew 4.3% compared to the same quarter last year, and we reached a record of $2.04 billion. So this marks the third consecutive quarter of record high volume growth for out-of-home, and propelling our year-to-date growth to 4.6%. And that's impressive. I mean, that's really good. We're doing well. We're outperforming a lot of other media channels. But we're not quite exactly where we need to be, and I think we've heard it throughout the day. There's more opportunity, there's more things we can do. And I think when Michael said, yeah, but, we need to think about that, yeah, but. How can we do more things? How can we elevate and grow national more? But see it from a positive perspective, because there is a lot of opportunity for us. But again, let's not sort of rest on our laurels just because we're growing. We can and we should grow more. And that's why we at OAAA, trying to help there a little bit, today are releasing a new piece of research in partnership with the Harris Poll. This particular one, we do this several times a year, as I think you know, but this particular one highlights how out-of-home interacts with social media and influencers and the unique impact of iconic locations. It shows that out-of-home is not just relevant in the digital age, it fuels it, bridging the physical and digital worlds. And it's really a platform that brands and advertisers should think about. So just to give you a few quick takeaways. Out-of-home ads that incorporate social media or influencer elements or appear in iconic locations have a stronger impact on nearly half of adults, especially among urban, Black, Hispanic, and younger audiences. And let's explore a little bit around what that means. We live in an age of influence, and that's good news for our industry. Nearly half of adults, 47%, recall seeing an influencer content in out-of-home ads. And a majority, 81%, believe influencer endorsement benefit any type of product. And influence endorsements on out-of-home drive significant actions. 2/3, 67% of adults, are likely to act after seeing a product or a brand endorsed by an influencer. And of those, nearly half, 48%, visit the brand's website or search for it online, and 1/3 make a purchase. Those are really powerful, strong numbers. So even if we may not be the most measurable medium, we have a lot of proof points that we can leverage with brands, especially when it comes to these parts of the industry. Social media also amplifies out-of-home's effectiveness. 2/3 of adults recall seeing out-of-home media elements in out-of-home ads, such as handles, QR codes, and more. And this integration enhances engagement, making out-of-home a real key driver in a digital ecosystem. And finally, the study underscores the power of iconic and high-traffic locations. 65% of adults say that they're more likely to engage with the brand after seeing it advertised in a high-traffic or iconic location. So there's some really great data in this industry, and I think something that we all can leverage and use. But there's a lot more than I covered today because I know we want to get to the awards. So I encourage you to explore it further. There should be a QR code. Here it is. And this year, another tradition, we have another QR code. This year it actually works. So please use that QR code, download the study, or come to me or somebody else from the OAAA team, and we can talk more about it. So just closing out and trying to just summarize a little bit about what we heard today, because I think we heard some really great points. Ryan opened up with some key themes that I then think we heard reiterated throughout the day. So I want to just try and summarize that a little bit. So as we look to the future, I think we should commit to using every tool in our toolbox to elevate the impact of out-of-home. We should truly embrace the omni-channel strategies and integrate out-of-home more seamlessly into the broader media mix. We're part of something much larger. Let's make sure we are part of it. Let's lean more into automation, and let's leverage the power of social media influencers to amplify campaigns beyond the physical space. And let's make use of our amazing creative capabilities. And above all, let's not be afraid of, let's just keep leveraging data. It's just not an asset, it's the key to unlocking smarter, more effective campaigns, and it's something that we all will need going forward. But above all, let's continue to value this incredible medium that we are part of and recognize its absolutely unmatched ability to connect, inspire, and drive results. So together, we can shape a much brighter future for out-of-home. And with that, I want to say thank you. And now it's my honor to present the man of the hour, our very own Jeff Jan, EVP of Strategy and Growth, and he will present the winners of the Media Plan Award. Come on, Jeff.
All right, thank you, Anna. So for the next hour, did you say? The next hour? Okay, for the award. No, I started hearing hisses already. Thanks, Daniel Craig. Well, thank you all. This is actually great to be here, year 2, to present the winners of the Out-of-Home Media Plan Awards, and especially being surrounded by so many friends, media agencies, to creative brand leaders. It's also a really, I think, great moment for us to really celebrate not only the awards, but also for being together. And I think I've been stressing stronger together as one of the themes for going into 2025, because when we come together, we're gonna be certainly much more successful. Bridge beyond the 4, the 5, 6%. Let's go beyond. And of course, today's discussions highlighted a lot of these very similar sentiments, how data, creative impact, and certainly having a standardized taxonomy. Thank you, Christina and Christine, for bringing that up, because it's a very, very important industry initiative at OAAA. But how all of these things come together as a way for us to shape the future of advertising, not just in out-of-home, but the future of advertising. And now it's not a great, it is a great example of how we look into the future and what we see today through the lens of the Out-of-Home Media Plan Awards, which honors best-in-class out-of-home plans. And this year's winners illustrate just that, how efficient, effective, and engaging out-of-home can be when strategically leveraged. So this year, we have 5 gold and 5 silver winners. So let's take a look. Roll video. Actually, I'm rolling video. That's some pretty good work. All deserve a cheer, but there's only one that deserves and earns the Media Plan of the Year. I tried to make that rhyme, but it didn't really work. And the moment you've all been waiting for. So this year's winner transformed an out-of-home mural into a global cultural moment, blending social, video, and a live event to elevate fan engagement, drive artist awareness, and redefine interaction, leaving such an impression. The mural is now a landmark on Google Maps. Try Googling it. So it's my pleasure to announce the 2024 Out-of-Home Media Plan of the Year to Atlantic Records, Charlie XCX, and Colossal Media for Brad Wall. Here to accept the award and share a brief case study are Jen Edelberg and Madison Napoli for Colossal Media. The video.
Yeah. Give it to me, I'll drop it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. A little bit shorter. There we go. It's really special to be receiving this award on Colossal's 20-year anniversary. And that's, yeah, woo, woo. And that's thanks to a lot of people in this room, by the way. But it's because this campaign really reinforces why we brought this craft back in 2004. Kind of like Jarek and Rob said in the creative panel earlier, it's about the human connection, it's about making meaning, it's about getting people to look up in an age of looking down, and it's about the cultural currency and the powerful stage for storytelling that a hand-painted canvas can create, whether that's a jaw-dropping photorealistic portrait or a solid color and a single word. It's also really special to introduce the colossal rock star who single-handedly made this happen alongside Atlantic Records. She represents the next generation of out-of-home leaders, and she's going to tell you about this epic campaign.
Thanks. I'm a little nervous to get too close to this. I feel like it's going to be extra loud. I'm already a loud person in general. But thanks, Jen. That was very kind, and I think you said it best. Honestly, this is one of my favorite things I've ever worked on, and it's definitely something I'm incredibly proud of. It was certainly a campaign that took a lot of flexibility, both on my team's part, on Atlantic Records' part, on Charlie XCX's part herself, and honestly, in terms of like our painters and our staff who brought it to life. It took the most flexibility because we turned everything around on pretty much the quickest timetable you could ever imagine, especially considering it was all done by hand. But kind of like just quickly going through what everything was and how it all worked, I mean, everyone here, I would assume is aware of like what Brat Summer is, even if you're not in the depths of like what it actually stands for. You've heard the term Brat Summer. It inspired everything from the color Brat Green that has had its moment into like Kamala Harris's campaign strategy and her social presence on social media during the presidential election, all the way down to like viral dances on TikTok and all of the above. Well, that actually kind of started just with one phone call that landed on my desk from the VP of Atlantic Records back in late April. She was basically looking for a way to take the album cover of Charlie XCX's new album that was dropping at the end of that week and turn it into a huge campaign that would make a splash in the market. So what we did was basically come up with a way to work on a really quick timeline to take all the elements that she wanted included and to be able to turn it around in something that would make said splash.
What we ended up doing was focusing on 3 key elements. We focused on not only the location, but specifically a location that was at street level, so it was able to like have people come up and engage with the wall and pose in front of it in a very old school kind of like selfie wall way. It was in a neighborhood that identified with the audience and like fan base that Charli XCX has, and it had a space in front of it to where there could be a live performance element. Looking at all 3 of those things, we found a wall in a neighborhood in Greenpoint that kind of fit the bill, and then from there we kind of like hatched a plan as to how we would make this unfold and make it be as engaging as possible. What we ended up doing was we planned on painting the wall in one day, and within that day, while we were on the wall painting, Charli would then stream our production of the wall on her TikTok without giving any hints from our team or her team as to what was happening. It was just a random wall on her TikTok where it was all of a sudden being painted a color green. Her album hadn't dropped yet. People weren't exactly sure what was going on. But at the end of the day, once we were done painting and the paint was dry, Charli's team ended the live stream, and what she did was she showed up, she tweeted the location of the wall and the time, and she ended up showing up and doing a live performance. The day of the actual campaign launch and the whole thing, that's exactly what happened. We showed up at the wall around 6 a.m. Our team set everything up. Her team got there, and by 7 a.m., we were on the wall painting, and the live stream was going. I think the key element here, and kind of the thing that made this really get going and kind of had the snowball start rolling, was the fact that like there was no context added. And I think particularly the younger generation that is chronically online loves the idea of being like an internet sleuth, trying to figure out what's going on. It's solving the problem. It's figuring out the answers to the questions. So I think a lot of it was sort of like, what's happening here? So throughout the day, as we're live streaming and painting this wall, people were trying to figure out where the location was. And, you know, after a couple hours, they figured it out. As to how, I'm not quite sure, but eventually people started showing up. They were posing in front of the Charli XCX's live stream that was going on. They were dancing, they were engaging, they were posting on their own social media channels, they were going live on their own TikToks. So it kind of started that buzz that we were talking about, right? And by the end of the day, around 6 o'clock-ish, we finished painting the wall, the paint dries, and then the live stream ends. No additional context. A couple minutes later, Charli XCX goes on her Twitter and her Instagram, and she posts the location and a time. The goal here was to have everyone show up in hopes that Charli herself would show up. She didn't confirm anything. She kind of just like kept the air of mystique and mystery going. And that's exactly what happened, though. Around 7:45, 7:30, she rolls up in a big black SUV. We had to clear all of the fans out from in front of the green wall that we had painted. She pulls the car right in front of the wall that we had just finished painting. She literally climbs out of the sunroof with 2 huge speakers and starts blasting the single to her new album that was launching that Friday. There had to have been easily like 300 to 400 people in front of the wall singing along with her, screaming, jumping, dancing. It was like a surprise live concert. In reality, she was probably only there maybe 30 minutes, and then she packed up her stuff and left, but the message was received, and we got the splash that we were looking for. It was so successful, actually, that people ended up staying after she had left. I feel like normally at the end of a concert, it's like a mad dash to get everyone out of there. It was the exact opposite. People stayed, they hung out, they engaged with each other. The wall actually almost became like a community space to where people could kind of like connect with fellow fans and they started posing in front of the wall and posting on Instagram even more so than they had throughout the day. The results of that were kind of crazy. Just from that one day at that one wall, the live stream, even before the performance itself, had over 550,000 views and people engaging with it. Charli posted a video on her Instagram herself of her on top of the car in front of the wall with the huge green backdrop that we had just painted. That got over 12 million views, 100,000 likes, so on and so forth. The campaign and that one-day activation was so successful that Atlantic Records actually asked us to extend the campaign another 2 months and add in multiple different creative changes. But what we did, which I think really caused the snowball effect and the reason that this campaign was so special, is that they listened to their audience and the community and the fan base. They loved the idea of trying to like figure out what was going on. They actually really loved the idea of that it was like done by hand and it was a slower process and it wasn't just like a link drop or a QR code. Like it's like it took time to figure out what was happening. So for every single creative execution that we did on different dates, we followed that similar pattern. So we'd show up at the wall at the beginning of the day, the live stream on her TikTok would start, and then throughout the day, as we're unveiling certain elements of things that resonated with her audience, by the end of the day, once we were done, she would then drop that specific thing. So for example, the Lord, one on the bottom middle area right there, we ended up painting those letters in like random orders at the end, revealing that it said Lord. And once we were done with the wall and the live stream ended, she dropped a song that was in collaboration with Lord that no one had any idea was like kind of coming about. So I think like really leaning into the idea of a revelation campaign and something that is done quickly in reality of like, you know, the hand-painted world, but in, you know, the context of the greater media scheme is actually done on a slower process. I mean, it took us like, on each wall, it was probably like, I would say between 5 and 8 hours on the wall of painting and like a live stream going on where people are interacting with it throughout that entire time, both in person and online. I think a great kind of, you know, measurement of this in terms of like the media space is that within the context of the campaign, by the time we were done and we had done all those different creative executions and all those different live streams, there's over 300 million different impressions across a million different types of major publications, everything from Vogue to Architectural Digest to Rolling Stone. It was crazy, and everyone started talking about not only like Charli's album, but I think was really cool and kind of as a representative of the out-of-home community specifically, is they talked about the wall itself. They talked about the location. They talked about how it was painted by hand. They talked about how like one color can have such a huge impact on a community and on an audience and on a fan base and really start like dictating the path that summer ended up, you know, going along in terms of pop culture. Beyond that, the thing that I think is the most valuable out of this entire thing is the social impact it had. This one campaign, I mean, it inspired so many people to go out to the wall and engage with it. And it was like, I fondly refer to it as like Gen Z's version of the angel wings in LA. It's that type of thing where it's like, you know, it made people want to go out and pose in front of the wall, which kind of sometimes when we talk about a selfie wall, it can sound a little antiquated to younger generations, but this is exactly what it was. It was a selfie wall, but it became so iconic that it was like not only a selfie wall, it was like the Brat wall, and everyone knew where it was. And it was like exactly like he said, it has the landmark on Google Maps, and it's still there, even though it's no longer green because they don't pay for the media space anymore. But it was the whole moment in time, and I think that's really what resonated so well and what made this such an incredible campaign, that it was an accumulation of so many different things. It created a space for people to go interact with it. It was a specific color green that, you know, people would consider ugly, but it was kind of the point of it that it wasn't a conventional green. It was somewhere in an area that her audience resonated with. It was all those things that made people want to go out, engage with it, and then share it around. On top of that, I think Jen said it really well. It did kick off like a cultural phenomenon. I think the most amazing part of this is that it grew from one phone call and it was just one wall that then turned into a cultural phenomenon that it became known as Brat Summer. So Brat Summer really started back in April or early May with this one location. It ended up reaching all the way around the world. It reached all the way into the presidential race. I mean, it's incredible how an out-of-home campaign can transform not only like the media space itself. I mean, this inspires so many other campaigns from Bratwurst or Bratwurst all the way into like something for Paramount Pictures. Like, it inspired so many different media campaigns, but it also just inspired the path that pop culture ended up taking throughout the year. I mean, Brat Summer became an entire movement that represented like a different feeling than you know, previous summers had or previous years had. It was all about being free and authentically yourself, and it was this entire movement that started with a wall. So, yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much, Jenna Madison, for the fascinating glimpse of the plan behind the plan. Well, let's just once again give a big round of applause to Atlantic Records, Charli XCX, Colossal Media, and all of the 2024 Out-of-Home Media Plan Award winners. And for a deeper dive into this campaign and all the amazing winners today, go to OAAA.org to check out the detailed case studies. Thank you so much, everyone.
Congratulations to Atlantic and Colossal. I mean, just look at the amplification around one wall. What a story. Thank you for that. And thank you to everybody. This is usually my time to do a wrap of the day. But, you know, backed by popular demand and after his exceptional presentation, we're thrilled to have someone with us who Forbes has called artist, globetrotting speaker, and market seeker. A storyteller who identifies emerging trends and inspires clients to think differently. Futurist, creative director, strategy and digital consultant known as the Digital Prophet. I mean, who doesn't want to be called a prophet? I mean, come on. Please welcome back is our surprise guest, David Shing, who the world knows better as Shingy.
Hey, mate. How are you? Hi, everybody. How are we doing? Oh, you're shiny. No, how are we doing? Fuck you. My God, I thought I offended you last year. Apparently, I didn't do enough of that. I'm going to do it this year. Quick show of hands, who the hell knew who Charlie was? Yeah, I thought so. About bloody half a dozen people. God damn. I will also tell you that the green I'm going to use, I've been using that shit for 20 years. That is not Brack green, that's Shingy green. God damn it. So let's move on. But I thought about this presentation this morning. No, I've actually given it a bit more thought than this morning, but I'll tell you that's not true. But anyway, let's just say this. What a wonky year. 12 months ago, I came to be your opening speaker. And, you know, when the ad club said, would you come and speak to the outdoor guys? I'm like, oh, I love outdoor, but I've never spoken to them. And I turned up, and I haven't seen shiny faces like this since the 80s, dude. It's weird. And what's amazing is it feels like it's at a cusp of something that's radical and new, and you're one of the very rare formats still that allows you to do that. And I'm not here to, you know, blow smoke up your ass. I'm actually here to give you some inspiration, I hope, that you will lead into next year and will help qualify some of the things that I've heard today. You obviously see from Charlie's work the power of influence that Anna talked about, and I love the fact that that's the cusp that we need to talk about. Why are you guys sitting so close to the front row? Did you come so late? These poor bastards turn up late, that's what happened there. But here's what's up. I want to talk about impossible trade-offs, and it seems like a very serious topic for me to talk about, but look, the reality is, if you don't know who I am, I'm Shingy, and I come from Australia, and that's the house I grew up in that house right there, and that's my family. I'm one of 10 kids, and that's 12 people in a 2-bedroom house, and in about 20 minutes we can talk about that shit at the red wine, the cheese, and the platter over there, my friends. I have a lot of therapy that I'm still trying to work through, and it really comes from Chinese Catholics are unstoppable. But I also will tell you that I was 16 and 9 months, exactly. That's the age you can get a license in Australia, and it was the fastest time that I could piss my parents off was to buy a car. And I had freedom, independence, and self-expression, as some of you did too. But the reality is kids are born connected, we know that. 37% of kids under the age of 2 can operate a swiping device better than their parents. But the reality is also this. The generation that you all have been talking about this morning, and that's the end tail to that last award, is this generation. The slash generation that believe they're DJs, VJs, influence of power, and they are. This slash generation is radically different because they're doing this. They're blending their work and play. And I want to talk about that just for a second. Because as you sit here and think about all of the beautiful things I've heard this morning about measurement, success, attribution, and all of those things, I couldn't give 2 shits about that. Because all I care about is what are we doing to help people get inspired. Those 8 billion people on planet Earth, 50% have never known life without the internet. And here's what's amazing about them. They sit in this quadrant, according to Harvard. Not that any of you care about that right now. That's psychographic targeting. Because you've been presented to a lot this morning, I just want to give you some behavioral changes. And here's where it's up. Any strap planners in the house? Who's a strap? Can I pick on somebody's? No strap planners in here? Bullshit, you're all strap planners, I'm sure. No one just wants to raise their hand. I feel you. But here's what's up. This is amazing. Persona is how you cover your ass. Because you can do great data runs like this, and this stuff is available. So look at this. Male, born in 1948, raised in the UK, married twice, lives in a castle, famous, whatever. And it could be Charles, but it could equally be Aussie. And these two are radically different personas. I think you'd agree with that. I don't think anybody on planet Earth would say they're blended. Radically different dudes. So given that's the case, I would push you to consider this as a genre, the archetype. And I'm not talking about your brand archetype. Is it a sage? Who gives a shit? I'm talking about the people outside who are understanding that we're talking about totally different audiences and not just about demographics. We're not just talking about moving from millennials to Gen Z to alphas. We're talking about a totally different type of archetype. I know people who are 72 years old that act like 12-year-olds, like some of you do. But I also find this to be incredible. Every single time you open up something, like this gentleman is right here, there is going to be some sort of this sort of blinky thing telling him, I can show you a better version of that. But the reality is this, it isn't. Because at the moment it's here as to be a disruptor. It's here, I think, to distract you from the fact that experience is the industry that you're part of. And what's amazing about that is that where it heads in the future is transformation. And I don't think you guys get enough credit when people talk about 8-Door. They just talk about digitals or colossals and these incredible things that you talk about as being marvelous. It's all of it. Everything that is outside of this screen, in my humble opinion, is your industry. And I want to encourage you to try and figure out how that becomes a reality. Let me just give you a quick data point. I saw some data slides up here from the investment cat. I'll give you some other ones to think about. Amazon. Anybody shout out how much it's valued at? No big investors in Amazon in here? $2 trillion. Thank you. Who was that? Thanks, brother. What about NVIDIA? Oh, we have another investor in the house. Check this out. So their market cap increased within 5 months at exactly the same rate as Amazon. So if you're the entire totality of Amazon's value, NVIDIA did it in the first 5 months of this year. So if you think about where we're at a place where AI, and Michael touched on it ever so slightly, the searches on this thing is nuts, man. There's almost 5 billion searches on on AI. Just 5 billion searches in Google. And then the second most popular search is it useful? It's incredible, is it useful? We're still asking that question? I mean, the reality is this. If you think about it, the CMO today, there's no such thing as a chief marketing officer. If you have that title, God bless you. Completely irrelevant. And the reason for that, it needs to be reframed to this. They're a complex matrix observer. I mean, it's such a weird place to be a CMO. It's a totally different job. Chief evangelist, that thing is a real deal. So the digital prophet thing that I came up with about 10 years ago, I mean, Jesus, man, now we've got chief evangelists that are hanging out in these AI businesses because they need to see around corners. But the reality is this, everybody wants to gain new skills. They want to be able to, so the vast majority of people have jobs. Can I have a quick show of hand? Who actively uses AI in their day-to-day? Yeah, about 50%, which is maybe even slightly less, which is pretty amazing because that's really what the data tells us. There's not really enough people to do it. There's some sort of disconnection that's happening. And here's why. Let me just, and maybe you'll agree with this. But at the center, a person at the center of where we are in this industry today, they're being hit by production that they're creating on their own, better known as the influencer, and they're also being hit with these new AI experiences coming from others. And where I find that to be fascinating, or put it in another way, creation is hitting consumption. And right at the center there is a person who's massively confused. So look, I think Casson said it really well. AI won't take your job, no, but it'll take your tasks. And let me explain that to you. So 1,000 years ago, as a young designer, any designers in the house? Anybody tell me what those are? Pamper and squeaky markers. That's how I used to design stuff back in the day. But as I finished design, friends in the industry said, oh, Shingy, design's dead, dude. You've picked the wrong industry. I'm like, what do you mean design's dead? It's because every design now has to happen using this. DTP was the industry that disrupted my industry. And that industry of desktop publishing was the AI of my industry. And this is 1,000 years ago. But the truth is, all it did was make things automated. And if it can be automated, it will be automated. Let me tell you that I went from squeaky markers and this room being my portfolio of tools to that. Very uninspiring environment for me, because they also said that's the software you now design stuff on, which blew my mind. That was the disruptor. It got automated, tasks got easier, but software got harder, which is kind of a new revelation. By the way, if you're sitting there going, oh, you have teams that are like, oh, Canva's really hard to work with. Oh, fuck you. That's what I had to design with back in the day, for God's sake. Really, shit. But where I do find this amazing, everything and nothing has changed, it feels like. But let me tell you something. You cannot control the evolution of AI, period, full stop. It's coming with or without your permission. But what you can do is revolutionize your intelligence. And so I'm going to challenge you to do that, because as we move from the IQ internet into the EQ internet, it means that people who are wandering around this place aimlessly are actually wanting to up their IQ from an EQ perspective. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you ever use these tools, these modern tools today, and you're like, oh, it feels like it's kind of reading my mind, it's because it is. It's using your data to reflect back things that are really interesting to you. And if you're sitting here going, isn't it new? It's not new, because back in '96, remember IBM was beating the #1 chess player in the world. And that was in '96. And if you look at something like '98, when you had a PC in your CD-ROM and you're doing natural language training, your machine was learning that for you. That was AI back in '98. Rover on Mars in 2003, those autonomous vehicles were using AI. If you look at Watson, again, IBM in 2011 was beating all the Jeopardy players. This stuff is not new. And even in 2012, when Google could look at the metadata of a picture, not the visual of it, the metadata, and actually know and identify what a cat was. And then, of course, the infamous story in 2017 where Facebook had 2 chatbots that created their own language and didn't understand it, so therefore they ripped the machine out, which I also thought was quite amazing. So AI isn't new. And either are adoption curves. So if you're waiting for an adoption curve to ramp up your ability to express, don't. There's no such thing. It's all about these adoption rockets. And what do I mean by that is that the number of marketers using AI today is very low. It's 50%. But the truth is they're using it in their day-to-day. And where I find this to be amazing is this. Data and experience is the backbone of your industry. And so the new version of that is ethics. But you guys, I think, have been inspiring this industry for many years, and I just want to remind you of that. Remember this piece 10 years ago? I love this. Is anybody in the room responsible for this? I will talk about this all day, every day. To get up on a billboard that's live in Piccadilly Circus and walk to the edge of that and tell you where that flight is going from. We celebrated this over 10 years ago. And we sit here and go, wow, it's incredible that AI is coming. But then you shit on this by Coca-Cola? Give me a break. Actually, give them a break, because look, they've been doing AI ads for years and years and years. This is the first one they made look hyper-realistic, which is a big mistake of theirs. But this is amazing, in my opinion. The challenge is, thank God that Jaguar came over and took the heat off them, in my opinion. God bless Jag. Wow, here we are. Okay, so here's the deal. These applications, as you saw, and I'm very impressed by that piece of work by BMW that could actually target an Audi driver. That's customization in the wild, but it's also personalization. This is what technology allows you to do. But if you can humanize these experiences, which again, I'm telling you what you do, and you know this, but just to inspire you on that, humanization is for real. Can you use technology to do that? Yes. Here's a very good example of Cadbury. This is the #1 actor in the world. They took one shot of a commercial, took his his voice, his position, his placement, and created thousands of highly fragmented ads that sit in these hyper-local environments. And why is this amazing? One, they could never afford that actor to do it. And two, he would never want to do that shit. So this is a really powerful use of AI. Somebody in the house may have done this. This is an amazing piece of work. This is out of France. This is an example of using AI to do gender bias. So you take these sporting film clips, which look like men scoring these goals, and they reveal that it's actually all women. You've seen that. And then you've seen this too, I hope, and somebody in the room may be responsible for this. So one of the pet care companies in the US replaced their ads. They included dogs that are actually able to be adopted. How amazing is that? And they replaced it to these dogs, that every time a dog gets adopted, they replace the dog. But when you look at Sad Larry, top left, that's what these dogs look like. All they did was took their like and created these beautiful hyper versions of them. And it's inspiring. But look, the reality is, these technologies are here for you to dream. And it's really designed for the dreamer, to be able to say, what's actually Alice look like in reality? What would Elsa look like in reality? So don't wait for it to be a destination, it's a mindset. And here's where I find it to be fascinating for you. If you look at these audiences, and Charlie's a really good example of that, people actually give a shit about stuff that isn't all virtual. I live in the virtual world, so whoever did this, God bless you. Amazing piece of creative ambition. This, another piece of it. And if you think about it, in these real world experiences that people into, they just want to make sure that they prefer these experiences that happen in reality. So is content dead? Maybe. So I would argue the experience is queen. And I would say that is exactly your pinpoint. I mean, if you want to bid on something like this, they were sold originally before they went to Sotheby's. This was sold for $150,000 initially. And then, of course, this piece of work got sold for $5.2 million. And so people are craving experiences. I don't think they're all good experiences, by the way, but what it does allow you to do is dream. You look at somebody like Jan Mills, this incredible designer is able to actualize things that were designed either in CGI or AI and create things that are amazing. I mean, this was happening around Soho. I'm sure a bunch of you saw this bag was actually a bag that rolled around town giving away croissants and orange juice. And people are craving these experiences. Here's an example of Airbnb saying, look, we're going to have somebody like Doja Cat give away an experience with her over a weekend. That's how much we crave experiences. So I think you're really in the experience game because people, particularly younger audiences, are craving community and connection. And here's where it gets hot. If you're going to be doing this about 1,000 times a day on your swipey devices, I would argue that what we need to do is make sure that we're not too impatient to become intelligent. And that intelligence for me is a bit like this. Don't talk about the attention economy, it's old school. Talk about the intention economy. What is my intention with every single thing that I'm expressing digitally or physically? Because people prefer stuff that isn't in the category of ads. I prefer friends over ads, I prefer peer-to-peer, and I sure as shit prefer things like word of mouth. And that's exactly what the data is telling us. But here's where I find it fascinating. As you sit here and go, the industry's stuck at 6%. I heard that shit last year. But here's where I think it's amazing. This. I'm of an industry of big ads, little content. It funded my entire career. But now it's all about big content, little ads. If we can change the word from content to context, I think we're there. So let me explain what I mean by that. $16 billion was the entire content marketing budget for 2022. $16 billion. By 26, it's estimated the content marketing budget alone will be $500 billion. The entire global marketing budget is $1 trillion. Half of it dedicated to content. If we can change that to be context, that is where I think you grow your market share. Out of content budgets, not advertising budgets. I think you're in the wrong industry. You're in the context industry. So if I can say, you need to inspire, educate, and obviously you need to entertain, and that's exactly what you are. Now everything is an ad. Now here's the deal. I'm going to pause here for a second. I have exactly 0 seconds. Can I blast through this for another 5 minutes? Everybody else's speech was long and shit. Are we good? For real? Okay, let's go. So, better than the machine. Here's the only thing that I'm going to say. Data is historical. Okay? When you guys talk about data, that shit's history. It's not the future. The future is imagination. And so I would argue that's where we need to pressure test it. Because, guys, the reality is this. If you can help brands create culture, particularly with what you have, that's a win. Not just reflect culture. And the only way to do that is get out of the category that you're in and hang out in culture to understand how you can create disruption for the brands that you represent in the house. Very important. And perception, my friends, is reality. Let me ask you another question. Where's this brand from? Japan, England. Who said England? Who mumbled that? Thank you. Japan. So totally different, right? England. This brand is from England. A couple of stodgy dudes in the Midlands started this Hypebeast brand. Now, as an Asian, I'm both incredibly intimidated and inspired at the same time. But it's incredible. So maybe we could know who this is. Whose brand is this? Harley. Anybody own a Harley? You close your eyes, we have this as the perception, right? Oh, absolutely. Henry Fonda rolling down the road or whatever the hell he is. Slightly before my time, God bless. But here's what's up. The reality is this shit. So the point is, and I tell you this, just to say that perception matters. And the perception of this industry can radically change if you perceive it differently. And I really think it's about that context for me. And if you could steal from content, it's different than what you just get, what you deserve in the spaces of real estate of which you occupy. Because the mind's eye of this industry is high. And I would argue that instead of making people want stuff, can we make stuff that people want? All right, Sheen, what are we looking at here, dude? All right, so this is a dog rescue company out in New Zealand, man. They said, we think a bunch of dogs are smart enough to drive. They got together with Minnie and they teamed up and decided to teach these dogs to drive. It's just a great idea. The execution's not that great. It's just this story told immaculate. You guys don't even give a shit what I'm saying. They're like, can we sit down and watch this bloody thing for 3 minutes, please, dude? But I'm showing you this to say that great ideas just need a fundamental execution to change the... You really don't give a shit what I'm saying, do you? God bless. Oh my God. You talk about over-talking. I'm loving that story. But there's something... Also drive better than my mum did. It's incredible what can happen when you allow the imagination to run wild. And by the way, this execution is also 10 years old. It's incredible what can happen when you allow people to imagine things differently. And my friends, I leave you with this incredible quote by Audrey Hepburn. I started out with impossibles, and the reality is it isn't. Nothing is impossible because the word itself says I'm possible. But look, thank you very much for having me as your closer. God bless. Happy New Year. I hope everything is fantastic in the new year, and I'll see you soon. Take care.
Well done, Shingy. Great close. Always entertaining. Now, on behalf of the Ad Club and our sponsor committee, we again thank all of our sponsors for all their support and then ask them to join us for a special toast in the bar area after the event. Also, I'd be remiss to not mention the Ad Club is having their annual Bumpin' Holiday Party December 16th to celebrate. So come celebrate with us at our annual holiday party, which you can find out more on our site. And don't forget to keep the conversation going by joining the Ad Club, getting involved, and have a great day and happy holidays. Thank you.